All right, sorry about that, folks. So my computer decided to crash right at 7:30. My computer decided to take a very large crap on us, and so we had to take a quick break. But welcome to whatever the hell this is. Joined today by Dwayne, PJ, and Jake. You already should know all of them. We don't need to get in the weeds with intros. Courtney in the chat. Hello, Courtney. I think it's the first time I've ever seen Courtney in one of our chats.
She called us losers.
Well, I mean, we are losers, to be fair.
Bunch of losers. That's fair.
Compared to Courtney, we are losers. All right, so this is going to be. We're just going to kind of go through the phase 4, what we have so far, what we expect to get next year, what we're most excited about. We're not going to spend too long on any one thing, except maybe the most recent 2 entries, because I think. Aside from Jake, none of us have really had a chance to discuss those publicly. Am I wrong?
No.
Dwayne, you haven't really talked about it publicly?
I did last week.
Ooh, all right. Well, then I stand corrected. But
Stealing my bit, Maxwell.
if you are watching this, there are spoilers for everything.
Literally everything.
We're not holding back, except Mando. We won't, or except Book of Boba. We won't spoil that. But everything else we will spoil, we will talk about. So if you haven't seen something, once that movie comes up, if you want to stay fresh and keep a fresh eye, then use that time to step back and step out. Unless you want to be spoiled. If you want to be spoiled, Courtney strikes me as someone who wants to be spoiled. So, but. Let's start with the first thing we got this year, which was WandaVision. Most of us did a WandaVision review of some form. I think Dwayne, PJ, and I did it on the PJCN. Jake, you did it on Apocalypse.
Correct.
But I think we all loved WandaVision, right?
We did.
Yes.
I did.
In hindsight, I'm not the biggest fan.
Okay.
I liked it when I watched it. But similar to, I think a lot of the mystery of the week or mystery of the season type things, it kind of doesn't hold up once you know what's going on. It's kind of, even though I never finished the show, kind of the reason why I never went back and like did a rewatch of Lost, because like once you know what is going on, it's just not as enjoyable for me when I'm in the dark. Like when I'm in the dark, I'm in it. But once I'm not in the dark, like all I'm doing at that point is watching to see the clues that I missed when I didn't see it the first time. Like it's kind of why like The Sixth Sense isn't super rewatchable for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's. I haven't done a rewatch WandaVision, so I couldn't tell you for sure. Go ahead.
I think for me, and I love the show, but I think I'm still waiting to get like almost payoff from it and seeing what comes next. You know, it came out in January. Like it came out in January, right? That's when it came out.
No, was it? I thought it was like March or
was it March?
March, yeah.
Okay,
March,
okay.
Yeah.
So is the first like
'cause
3 months of the year or whatever?
It pushed Black Widow and kind of like
That's what. Okay, you're right.
Space.
And like so much happened, but at the same time, we're still kind of like waiting to see what happens next. And
No,
I think
it premiered January.
Oh,
Did
did
it
January?
really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I think after seeing Multiverse of Madness, I might either appreciate it more or feel a very different way to it because it literally looks like it's kind of just like one big giant story.
It is a very because WandaVision kind of the plot line with Westview and what's going on with Vision and the kids and Agatha. It's a very contained story, but the ending left it this big amorphous blob with Sword. You know, it's done this thing where, and I think Marvel's done this a few times, where they've set up this big comic antagonist like Sword and decided, you know what, we're just going to use him for this one thing. So I have to see if they come back to Sword or not. Personally,
they will.
I hope so. I really liked what they set up with that. I thought it was very interesting. Again,
Well,
I would have
isn't
liked a refresher on it.
I feel like Fury is somehow like hanging out with Sword in the
Oh yeah,
post.
wait? I thought they were Sword.
Yeah, because isn't that the end of what? It's No Way Home
Captain
or Far From
Captain
Home?
Marvel. Far from
No,
home.
Far From Home.
Yeah, that it was Sword going into space with Captain Marvel.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Um,
Good call, PJ.
but what did so one thing I want to do when we hit each of these is what does this set up moving forward? The big thing is we kind of got that Wanda in the cabin moment where she's putting on a ploy of nice sweet Wanda while she's reading the grimoire and floating and levitating. I think that's our big hanging Chad there, along with the
White
twins.
Vision. Also,
White Vision. Yeah, so we've got the unresolved Vision, we've got the unresolved Wanda, and with Wanda with the Darkhold. Thank you, Amber. Also, Amber, thank you. I've put. Oh no, that's the wrong one. My setup has been a long time coming. Lots of little tweaks. So, thank you. But yeah, I'm very curious what we get moving forward for that. Jake, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, you guys were talking about it, and the thing about the MCU now, and it's kind of a conversation we'll have throughout the night, is it's in a weird place where everything it's doing is kind of setting up the next thing at the same time. So, like, we do get small payoffs, but a lot of the time, a lot of this is bridge building for more things. And I mean, one of the big things this whole year really was multiverse setup and like alternate universe setups. And so it didn't matter if it was WandaVision or Loki or Spider-Man. And now what we're getting from Doctor Strange, like that was such a focal point. Even What If, like that was the big thing that they were focused on, was there are other dimensions and other realities that we need to focus on.
Well, and I didn't realize it happened so quickly, but something like What If is literally coming back around the next year into live action.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
What PJ is saying is that they are literally taking every piece of everything, and there's small things that you can be satisfied with, but ultimately it's all about like literally the end game of what they are planning. And right now it's the multiverse thing. And even the trailer for Multiverse of Madness, I mean, when Doc went up to Wanda and he was like, I'm not here for Westview. What do you know about the multiverse? Like, he doesn't care about that right now. He is so focused on what's happening with the multiverse. It's interesting how it's all going to kind of come together, because we've heard and theorized for so long that it was going to be WandaVision, Spidey, Doctor Strange 2 as like this big connected thing. And that's playing over like, a year plus of storytelling. So I'm interested in seeing how it all kind of like blends.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where we get moving forward with this. I mean, I love Doctor Strange is one of my favorite characters. I think he's hiding on this shelf up here, but I've got my little Doctor Strange next to my little Iron Man. Like, he's one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and with everything we've gotten with this, for me, WandaVision was just a setup for the Doctor Strange movie. I love Wanda. I really am interested in Wiccan and what's the other kid's name?
Speed.
Speed. Is it just Speed? Okay.
It's Speed, yeah.
I'm really interested in Wiccan and Speed, how they're going to get them back, and kind of rolling into our next one, the Young Avengers, because they're definitely setting up Young Avengers
across multiple everything.
Yeah,
literally everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
So
Hawkeye.
Go ahead. I don't think. I mean, a lot of people have been like, "Yo, so who's gonna be the new leader of the Avengers?" and so on and so forth. And I don't think we're gonna see the Avengers in any shape or form until after we get the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
I think our next like major team up is gonna be the Young Avengers, whether that's in film or whether that's in a TV show. I don't, who knows?
Well, Young Avengers, or what's the team with
Thunderbolts?
Strange, Moon Knight, and
Midnight
Blade.
Suns.
Midnight
Suns.
Yeah, Midnight Suns is definitely slowly shaping.
I mean, that's shaping,
Yeah.
but I don't think that we're gonna see Midnight Suns for a while, because like
it's a bit.
We don't even have any real information on Blade other than the fact that he showed up in Eternals.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say showed up.
His voice
was heard
Yeah.
in Eternals.
Okay, so before we move on to our next one, Dwayne, is this a win or a win, loss, or meh for you?
WandaVision?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say overall it was a win.
Okay.
Mainly just because it kind of gave us faith in Marvel TV.
Fair.
That we were all kind of lacking post Netflix.
Yeah, post Jeff
Um,
Loeb era.
I just mean, just in general, like all of the, because I'm reaching even back into, you know, Perlmutter and all that
Yeah.
whole mess. You know, like just basically anything Marvel TV related up until now that was even tangentially connected to the MCU. Nobody had any real faith in, you know, Marvel TV going forward, and this kind of changed our entire outlook on it, and basically made all of these shows must watch, like, you know, essentially. But
Jake?
some people still feel like they don't need to watch them.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a win.
which is crazy.
It's a win. It's
win
a
for
win
you?
for a lot of reasons. Yeah, there's a lot of things I really do enjoy about it. I'm interested to go back and watching it, or go back to watch it and see how I feel about it. But there's a lot of things that I really do love. The kids and how that's going to come back around. The fact that she's now like the Scarlet Witch origin that they gave her. Obviously, Agatha Harkness and how she's going to come back around. White Vision. There's a lot of things to love about it. And again, I think I'll be very. I'm very curious to see how I feel about it after seeing the Multiverse of Madness.
Fair.
Yeah.
Pete, you're a win.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Right.
But it was. I think that WandaVision was a win, and it was actually for everything that Dwayne was saying. Like, I think the biggest thing was it convinced us that Marvel could work on television under Feige's eye. Like, after everything that we had seen with, you know, Netflix and like the back and forth and all the different showrunners and the problems that they had with Defenders and so on and so forth, like, a lot of people were like, can they even go back? Can they do this again? But under Feige's eye, like, they very clearly able to continue that momentum that they have with the movies and continue the quality at the same time. Like, it's really impressive, to be honest, because it's not an easy thing to juggle. Television and movies can be very different, but they're really making that jump really, really well.
Agreed.
I think I agree with that too. And I was gonna put this on the meh for me, but I think you guys the point you guys made about it being kind of the first MCU television officially for the Disney Plus era. You know what? Yeah, I think this is a win too. I didn't really factor that in. I kind of feel off about it in the long term, for kind of some of the same reasons. You know, you said, Dwayne, like, we didn't get a whole lot of resolution on some things. We talked about this at the time, but the Ralph Boner switch for me was a bit, I don't know. It kind of felt.
See, that stuff didn't bother me the way it bothered a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Because my entire mindset was like, what did you expect them to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like they did it kind of as, like, you know, a little sarcastic nod, but there was no way that they were going to be able to actually have him be Quicksilver, because they don't even have an idea yet of what they're going to do with all of the Fox stuff that they got back. You know, they're still in the kind of, how do we fit this into the MCU phase of X-Men, Deadpool. You know, they have a director for Fantastic Four, but do they have a script? Do they have any idea that, you know, cast anything? Not that any of us are aware of, you know, and not that I think that they didn't hear the rumblings that Disney was buying Fox and start planning, or, you know, even years ago, they're like, hey, if we ever get them back, here's the plan. You know, I'm not, I have no illusions that they didn't do that already, but overall, there's no firm plan on that stuff moving forward.
Right.
So, like, I don't know what anyone was expecting it to be other than kind of a troll.
And can I also bring up, like, the troll of it all? Like, what's funny is, like, WandaVision's whole shtick was that it was based off of sitcoms, right? Like, it was playing into sitcom tropes. And one of the major things in sitcoms is, like, stunt casting. like major players who you're stunt casting, and in a sitcom you would recast people all the time, like for different parts. So it just feels like playing into that trope from television. Like I get that it feels like a troll job because it is, but it's like a clever troll at the same time. And it also opened up the idea that, hey, maybe other people can play versions of these characters in a way from other dimensions. You know what I mean? Like it's the first real thought of maybe we can actually bring people from the other universes over. Like it was very important in opening the idea of the multiverse in a capacity.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. We didn't know back then that we were going to go into the multiverse stuff, aside from Doctor Strange. You know, we all knew Doctor Strange was going to be a multiverse story, but it ended up being, looks like our whole moving forward will be multiverse.
And there's
It's
nothing,
everything.
and there's nothing saying that he won't eventually show up as a version of Quicksilver.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
like what if in Multiverse of Madness, Wanda runs into him and she's like, "Yo, what the fuck, Ralph?"
Right.
Right. And it could happen, right?
Like what if that happens? Like there's
I mean-
nothing saying that he still couldn't show up as Quicksilver. Like
Yeah. It looks like the chat for the most part is agreed that WandaVision is also a win. Moving forward, though, we're gonna need to be a little bit more. We got to be harsher on these shows, guys.
It was
you know.
one show, brother.
I know, but I thought this was gonna be the loss here.
Really?
Okay, so next, no, I'm just.
Oh, I thought you were like,
No.
damn it, Sean.
No. All right. So next, Falcon and Winter Soldier, which for me, I think is my favorite of the TV series we've had so far. I love Falcon and I love the Winter Soldier. Bucky is my favorite of the like I don't want to say B tier, but the B tier heroes. Like Bucky is my favorite of them, and I'm glad to see him start to get A-list play. And I'm really hoping we get a lot more of him moving forward. I was hoping he was going to play a big role in Black Panther 2. I don't know now. But I thought, honestly, Anthony Mackie is fantastic carrying that shield. And the costume at the end is just gorgeous.
So dope. So dope.
Overall, this show is a huge win for me. Who wants to take this one first?
Huge win.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my second favorite of the shows so far this year. And it's no secret that the whole Cap mythology and world is my favorite of anything MCU. He's always been my favorite Marvel character. And so I was very curious to see how they would take over and transfer from Steve Rogers to Sam Wilson and kind of how that plays into everything. I love it so much because I love stories that deal with stuff that's happening in our lives today. And when they do things the correct way and when they're able to not like throw it in our face, but tell a story that fits what's happening in our society and our world today. And it did it for me, in a very, very well job. Anthony Mackie is fantastic. I think from the opening episode of him, doing that speech about Steve with the shield to the very end of him putting on the actual costume was great. I love all the story and tie-ins with Sharon Carter and Daniel Bruhl coming back to play his character as well. The possibilities of things that could be happening for some of those characters in the future. Obviously, Wyatt Russell just played a badass U.S. agent character who was super, super cool and a great foil to these characters. But Sean, I'm with you. I love everything Sam, Bucky, Steve, all of it. And it was totally up my alley. The ground level stuff is what I always enjoyed. And even though it does get a little high sometimes, obviously, he has wings and stuff. I thought they did a really, really good job with it. And I know some people give it they give it a little bit of a bashing. I've talked to some people who haven't liked it as much. To me, I just really understood it and it just really got me from the beginning to end. So, total win for me.
Carl Lumley as Isaiah
Yeah.
Bradley.
That's big too.
That's it, man. It's so good. And everything about Falcon and Winter Soldier really works for me. I think the biggest disservice for me, and it's something I've been very vocal about on Twitter, is I think that this was a show that probably would have benefited from a drop at once just because it's so built like a movie. And Hawkeye felt the same way. Like, just otherwise, this show is great. I love what it did with Captain America as a character. I thought that everything about the way that they carried over from Steve to Bucky and Sam, in like them trying to figure out their place in a post Steve world was really, really great. But Sam like stepping up and being like, I'm taking it. I don't want it, but I'm going to do it. And like the way he grows into it is just so awesome. And I thought that by the time it was over, they really earned it. I thought that the stuff with the virus that was like very clearly cut out, it didn't necessarily bother me at the end of the day because I felt like everything else was strong enough around it. And I just love Wyatt Russell as U.S. agent. And that was like our first real piece of the like putting the Thunderbolts together too. And so there was little things like that in this that I really liked. So big win for me.
Dwayne.
Although it's my second favorite, I think, of the shows, I'm gonna have to give this one a meh.
Oh wow! All right.
Yeah, because for me the highs were very high, super high, but the lows were so low that it when it nets out, it's just kind of middling for me. And I understand all of the problems that they went through with reshoots and cutting stuff out and having to, change things around. But we, except for the show, we can't critique what ifs. We can only critique what we got. And
Right.
No,
what
we'll be
what
doing
Marvel
that one. We'll be
decided-
doing What If later.
what Marvel decided to give us was, it was choppy, it was rough, and that's what they decided to put out. So that's what's gonna get critiqued.
Fair.
I understand all of the importance of the show, of the characters, and I love those parts of the show. But the parts that I don't like, I really don't like.
I think that's
Can I ask what is something that you really didn't like? Because I'm just genuinely curious.
I think some of the stuff that they did with Carly kind of fell flat. Like
I see that from a lot of people.
the importance of her end because of like the middle doesn't quite land. Like I know what they were going for at the end, and the way Anthony Mackie delivers that speech and when he carries out her body is like all of that is great, but there's just a little bit missing because of like how much we didn't quite connect with her character in the middle. And then a lot of the stuff with like Power Broker and Sharon and like that kind of stuff didn't quite get there. Like I think Zemo, like I think that they left money on the table with Zemo and did not use him like to the fullest. I think that there's some stuff they could have done with him. Like I was fully expecting him to be the Power Broker. Like I was like, yo, that's gonna be a dope twist. I was like, there's like I think that there's a lot that was just kind of left on the table, and maybe that's because there's gonna be a season 2. I don't know.
And we're getting the fourth in the movie too. So
and the movie that they have said is gonna come before season 2. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Right. Because so like some of that kind of like also I think held the series back a little bit. Because they like were like, oh, we have to leave some stuff for this in the future instead of like really flushing out the show.
Right.
And to Dwayne's point, the other thing I'll say, and this is the one, and I think I said it even when we watched and did our recap of it, this show needed one more episode to really fill out what it was doing. I felt like it really, the stuff with US Agent ends up flipping very quickly, and like
it was such a quick turn.
We were missing about an episode's worth of character work from
100%.
a lot of people. That was the biggest problem. And again, I think Marvel, like this shows that Marvel's still figuring out what they're doing with the shows and like what certain shows can have certain lengths versus others, because the everything outside of WandaVision has been 6 episodes so far.
I wonder if some of that development was cut from the pandemic plotline.
It
Well,
could've-
Maybe, but
and
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, wasn't this supposed to be the first thing from
Yes.
Phase 4
it
release?
was.
yes,
Mhm.
It was.
So
And
it
they
does
held
show
off-
that
they
maybe
held
like
it off for Black Widow.
like the growing pains maybe did show a little bit, even though it was released later
but
on.
this is and I think what we've kind of knowing what we know now, I think a lot of people, and myself included, kind of theorized that the reason it was pushed and reshot and whatnot was to make adjustments because of the pushing of Black Widow, and I kind of think it's the other way around. I think Black Widow was continually pushed so that they could fix Falcon and Winter Soldier with everything that happened, and then adjust Black Widow to do the same.
Because they had to cut if they did, depending on how long it took them to cut the pandemic plot line, it very well could have been
Well,
the reason why
they
it's
cut.
pushed.
They had like 3 months of break in shooting. Then they finished shooting and then had to go back for reshoots in like August of last year, I think. And I think they finally wrapped because the reason I remember the shooting schedule is because people were saying there's no way Sebastian Stan could be Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian,
Right.
because they were like, he was filming Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I like went and I was like, no, look, here's the Falcon and Winter Soldier shooting schedule. Here's when Mandalorian shot. He had plenty of time that he could have, been there. Obviously it didn't happen, but like
But
could,
if
theoretically he had the time to
Yeah.
have shot at something from, because I think there was like a 2 or 3 week break, but in between the end of shooting Falcon and Winter Soldier and the beginning of shooting Mandalorian. But that's a completely separate
Other.
thing. But I think in between like the last 2 episodes, I think is where that other episode probably should have been inserted. I don't think it's one that should have been tacked on in the end. I think that there's
right in the middle.
the majority of what was missing was in the middle.
Yeah, it should have been like right between it should have been the penultimate episode essentially. Like I think that episode 5 should have been 5, 6 should have been 7, and there should have been one like right in the middle.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because that's just, there's so much from the last, like there's so much setup from the finale that just feels like, okay, yeah, I guess, like,
Yeah.
we're supposed to expect U.S.
it
agent made a
felt-
full suit within 12 hours.
I was gonna say, it felt like there was a massive time jump,
Yeah.
but there wasn't. So like some
Right.
characters went through a time jump and some didn't, and it's because they like fast forward to his trial, and I'm like,
Yeah.
they had to get him back to the United
Right.
States, which takes like a few days. Then they had to like go through that entire process, which is going to take, at least a week, 2 weeks. So there's like a huge chunk of time missing in there.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think so. We got one meh from Dwayne, one meh from the audience, and then the audience gave one win to WandaVision. So next is Loki.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's that time.
All right. Loki was great, wasn't it?
I love Loki.
Doctor Who in the MCU.
That is why I love Loki. It is Doctor Who in the MCU. I'm just gonna run with it real quick.
Go for it.
Like for me, this was the one that I was most curious about, just because we were dealing with the first variant character, if you will, because it was the Loki coming off of the Endgame sequence when they had time traveled and he steals the Tesseract and disappears. And so I was always curious about what that was gonna mean. And I feel like they completely just had the best time playing with these variants and time travel and alternate dimensions, and it really dared to be different, which I thought was really important for the MCU. It was something that I thought WandaVision did a good job with too, was like daring to be different, doing the TV sitcom thing, doing what they were doing. Loki went with that, and it was clear that they were like, what if we did Doctor Who, but in the MCU? And it really worked for me. I thought Owen Wilson was like such a great addition to the overall cast, but it was more of just everything they were doing in bringing in Sylvie.
Yeah.
Sophia Di Martino as Sylvie is so excellent. And she is so fun. And she is who I'm most looking forward to seeing outside of Yelena, I think, more in the MCU, because I think there's so much to do with that character still that I'm excited to, especially with where she's left. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play into and factor into bigger events later.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I'm noticing everyone's talking about the finale. I actually have the most my biggest problem with Loki is the finale. While I like a more cerebral conflict in a finale, we kind of got that. Spoilers for the Wheel of Time, although I don't think anyone's going to watch it who hasn't already. The Wheel of Time has a very cerebral finale between the Dragon Reborn and the Dark One. In this finale we just witnessed 2 days ago, or a week ago, whatever. And I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that mental conflict. I liked the kind of Sophie's choice of like, you guys can either take my spot and have full control, or that whole conundrum with Kang.
Kang variant, I should say.
Yeah, the Kang variant. I ultimately I love Loki. I don't have a whole lot to say because I think we can gush for 30, 45 minutes about Loki if we wanted to. I think Loki was fantastic. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I really like how it opened up the universe, and I think that I can't wait to see what happens with Kang moving forward. I really hope we get more of Kang outside of Loki. I know that we've gotten hints that we will.
He's in
Ant-Man, Quantumania. Yeah.
Right, but I just mean even outside of that.
So
I just mean
you're looking at the next
big bad.
bad.
I hope that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
It's 100%. You're looking at the next big bad. Granted, I don't think it's going to be a Kang variant that we've seen so far. We might be looking at like Exodus or one of his like more
I don't think we've met the big bad.
Further. Yeah, and I don't think we're going to meet him in Quantumania. I don't think that's going to be
we'll meet a different
version.
Yeah.
So Kang has a very complicated and convoluted history, and I don't really have time to kind of like explain
we know
like exactly all of it. But one of those variants is going to eventually be the big bad. Now, which version of Kang it's going to be, is it going to be Franklin Richards or is it going to be Exodus? Is it going to be Kang the Conqueror? Who knows? And we'll see. But I think Loki is my favorite, I think as a whole MCU like single piece of media.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's at the top of my MCU rankings. And that's because the highs of Loki were so much more consistently high, like than the parts that I didn't particularly like. But unlike like you, when you're talking about the final confrontation in the finale, I didn't find it to be cerebral at all. I found it to be a lot more like visceral and like it was so much less about the conflict between He Who Remains and Sylvie and Loki, and even the conflict between Sylvie and Loki. It was completely about the conflict within Loki and the conflict within Sylvie. So for me, it was a lot more
it's an
internal of an emotional. It was an emotional internal conflict, and I love that. It felt very much like the conversations that Neo has with, or Thomas, I should say, has with his, what does he call him? His he doesn't call him
his analyst.
His
analyst. Oh yeah, his analyst. Yes,
his analyst.
Yes.
In like it very much felt like those. It felt very much like those conversations from the Matrix Resurrections, and like, and I love those types of where like it really wasn't Kang saying like it's you guys against me. It's he was just like, I'm here. and I'm
Yeah.
waiting for you to decide what you're gonna do.
Every time he puts the piece of paper down with like the next thing that they've said is my favorite, and then just and this is where it ends. Like, now I don't know what happens is
Yeah.
one of the all-time great moments. Jonathan Majors was such great casting for this. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
him so much. I think he's super talented. I'm excited that he's in Creed 3. He's playing Adonis's new rival. But the thing that was so cool was that they managed to hide it too. Like, Jonathan Majors being in this was such a breath of fresh air because it was surprising, because so many people assumed that it was going to be a Tom Hiddleston variant by the time that we got past the dragon, right? And
That's what I expected.
Right. And for it to be Jonathan Majors playing Kang.
I mean, I 100% called He Who Remains. I just didn't think that they were gonna wrap it into a Kang variant and like make that kind of a piece of the continuity. Because I was wondering, like, how are they gonna bring that in?
Because they could have done He Who Remains without tying him to Kang.
Yes,
Right.
because
They
in the
wanted
comics
to.
he's a completely separate
Yeah.
character. He is not related to Kang at all. He's actually I mean, he is, and he is also still the founder, for lack of a better term, of the TVA.
Mm-hmm.
But like the TVA serves a slightly different purpose in the comics than it does in the MCU.
Yeah.
But like everything about it was brilliant. The way that they like the way things were like antagonists and protagonists and just like polarizing and opposing forces, and like everything just kind of moved. Like, do you remember those like magnet like drawing boards?
Oh yeah.
Like that's like how the show felt, is like you were just drawing with one of those, and like wherever the show led you like everything just moved perfectly around it. And
Yes.
that's kind of why it's so high up for me.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. So I think that puts us at 15-2 for
It's a win for me, by the way, too.
having it. Oh, sorry, I already counted you a win. Puts it 15-2 for Marvel having a good year. I believe next is
Black
What if?
Widow.
Should be what,
What If. Okay.
Well, if we're saying in TV shows, but Black Widow was the next project. Yeah.
Okay, then Black Widow. Yeah, Black Widow. Great. Next
Actually,
is
Black Widow came out before Loki, but that's okay. That's okay.
That's
Oh, did
fine.
it?
Yeah, it's
You're kidding me.
oh yeah, it did. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
weird.
fine.
Okay.
We'll do it.
That's what this show's all about, Sean. We're good.
Yeah. Black Widow. Let's talk about Black Widow.
Yes, Davlin. Yes.
Black Widow is a weird one. I'll let someone else start here.
So Black Widow, and this I don't want to call this a
Right.
critique of the movie.
Was it July?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Um,
May.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This I'm not gonna call this a critique of the movie, but for me, Black Widow was a loss. And
Okay.
it has very little to do with the quality of the movie, which I think the quality of the movie is meh. But I think because of just how long they waited and how long they pushed it, and it's not necessarily all Marvel's fault. I think some of it is Marvel's fault because they didn't have to push it as far as they pushed it.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna keep doing it, like, it needed to be a better movie than it was.
I agree with that, and I think I'm also going to call it a loss due to timing. I actually have a lot of fun with this movie.
Yeah.
More fun than I think most people did, especially with Yelena, which I have a feeling we're going to talk a lot more about Yelena a little bit
I
later.
think Yelena and Red Guardian were the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, I do have one big miss. So I actually love their Taskmaster change. But my big miss in this movie is that we didn't get the Red Guardian fighting against Taskmaster with Taskmaster using more Cap moves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They kind of set that up and that's where I thought they were going. And yeah, I guess there's that expectation versus, reality that we've had a lot of talk about the last few years with Marvel and DC and Star Wars. But I think ultimately, when you set it up in the movie, you got to pay that off. And we're never going to see Red Guardian fight Steve Rogers captain. So
Yeah.
I don't know why we couldn't just pay that off in some way, shape, or form. I think a lot of what this movie does is really interesting. I really liked, and I'm blanking on character names here, but the mother and the pig experiments and finding out that she was responsible. I really liked all of that. Um, I
Is it
really
Melina? Melina?
Melina, I think sounds correct. Yeah.
Could be wrong.
I liked a lot of it. I had a little bit of a problem with the magical red dust, the red aerosol thing.
Yeah. I also was not a fan of the Taskmaster change. And it really didn't have anything to do with, because Taskmaster was now a woman or anything like that. That really wasn't my problem with it. My problem with it is there's a part of Taskmaster's abilities that is like integral to the character that wasn't explored at all because she was a mindless robot, basically. And that is that the more Taskmaster learns, the more he forgets. So like Taskmaster doesn't remember his daughter, doesn't remember his family, is not in charge of his own finances, any of that stuff, because he can't remember any of that stuff. And that is more interesting to me than, and you could have had like the tortured daughter part of it, but seeing her go through that and coming to terms with that and dealing with that is far more interesting than just, oh, her dad was an asshole. Well, we already knew her dad was an asshole. Like
I
Okay.
do hope we get Taskmaster in the future in a similar way to how we had Grumlow.
She'll be a Thunderbolt.
Sorry, I just said Grumlow. Rumlow. I combined Rumlow and Grillo.
yeah.
Crossbones, right?
In the
You're
same
talking
way
about
we had Crossbones.
Crossbones,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Dwayne, can you recommend
I'm trying to think what is the name of the one where Taskmaster starts training heroes. That's the
Oh,
one.
that sounds interesting.
So eventually, Taskmaster starts training. He's like, I'm done being a bounty hunter. He's just like, I'm gonna start teaching people how to fight. And
Taskmaster, anything
that-
you can do?
I think that might be it.
Okay.
But that is like one of the best arcs because he has to like, people have to like, it deals with him forgetting all of the stuff that he's done, people remembering, but still wanting to learn from him, but like not completely trusting him, and then like, some of his stuff that he's also done coming back, to rear its ugly head. I think that's probably one of the more solid arcs. Like Taskmaster's not this like iconic, unchangeable, like, icon of Marvel. That's not why I was like bothered by it. I think it was just, there were certain things that I do think are like important to the character that aren't really there that I think should have been. And what I'm afraid of is some of that is going to be given to Echo, and we can talk about that when we get to Hawkeye.
I think so. I think you're right. It's very interesting that we had both those characters in the same year, for a number of reasons, and I think we are going to talk about that when we get to Hawkeye. So it's a loss for you, Dwayne. It's a loss for me, Jake and PJ.
I will say that Taskmaster is the weakest part of the movie for me, not because of the change of the character, just because I don't think that she was utilized like she should have been.
That too.
It wasn't great utilization of the character, the change, no matter what. I think I might be on the only person on this boat when I say I actually got a little tired of Red Guardian throughout the movie.
That's fair. I think
All
that's
right,
very fair.
It was good having you.
No, come on. I actually think that's really fair.
No, I can
No, it is, it's
understand. I can totally understand why people were tired of. I think that if we had gotten any more of him than what we got, I probably would have also gotten tired of him.
Mm-hmm.
But because they used him like in the beginning
Sparingly.
and then in the end, and it's like you could I think that it was perfect that they took him out of the movie right when he had to make that choice, and you can see that he actually struggled with it,
Mhm.
so that it worked in the end. Because if you didn't see that, him coming back at the end wouldn't have worked at all.
Yeah.
Outside of those two things, I loved the movie. I think I might be the one who loved it the most here. I don't know what it is about these types of movies. I'm like a spy espionage
Well-
type of person, and it hits with me. I also very much enjoy the Black Widow character, and I have for a very, very long time. Some of the things were wonky, like the whole sky thing was definitely a
Yeah.
little too much sometimes, but
Yeah.
overall, I thought the whole idea of the movie I really liked. The problem is, and even though it's not a loss, I think it's a meh because this movie, like everyone else, should have came out 10 years ago.
Yeah,
It was just 10 years too late. Like the movie ultimately didn't have a purpose in what's happening right now, except for Yelena. That is the only thing that comes from this
Yeah.
movie at the moment that we care about and that is most important going forward in the MCU.
And
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest loss for me is that they basically made a movie that wasn't necessary.
Right.
Although
Yeah.
Eric's comment is the exact reason why I love that movie.
Yeah.
No,
and
and
I think
I agree. I feel the same way. I just think that there were some issues
100%.
with,
100%.
like I'm kind of with Sean. The red dust thing kind of doesn't work for me either. You know, I think that there could have been a better way to deactivate the Black Widow, whatever.
The them
Yeah, like
being whatever
something like
it
the
is.
Winter Soldier where they say a code and it reverses it or something, you know?
Yeah,
Like
I
something like
think
that.
that there could have just been a better way to undo it. But I think that I think that I do like the movie, but I think overall it is a loss.
Eric does have a point. The red dust is paid off in Hawkeye.
Yeah, no joke. There's a great joke about that in Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Peach, what do you got?
You guys covered almost everything I'm feeling on this. I think that the biggest problem here is it should have come right after Civil War if they were really going to do it, but it really doesn't overall have a place. Like I enjoyed the movie a ton. Like I thought it was really fun to watch. I own it. Like it's a really good movie. Meh. Like as far as the year is concerned, it has no overall effect. Honestly, it probably should have been a TV show.
Yeah.
If they had really wanted to do it, I think you could have spent more time with Taskmaster. You could have spent more time with Ray Winstone's character. Like, there's more you could have done overall, I think, and gotten more from the characters in the process. It's still fun. Like, you have to understand, like, I liked almost everything Marvel did this year. So me saying it's meh is not like a dig to be like, oh, it's bad. Like, it's not that. It's that on the table and on the whole, it just didn't add anything to the overall story. Other than a Yelena, I guess.
Well, and I think that's ultimately the key, right? I think
Right.
we all love this movie. I mean, this movie's like
I
a
don't
like
love it.
okay.
like
We
it.
all at least like this movie a decent amount,
Right.
but I think the timing, ultimately we want to be critical of Marvel here. We need to hold them accountable for their crimes. Yeah.
I just thought of one more thing that
Go ahead.
also it lost it for me a little bit in the movie. Budapest needed to be something way bigger than
Yeah.
what it was.
And I was just gonna say the whole idea of Black Widow and her world is so rich, and it all just disappeared with one movie. Like the whole Red Ledger, the Red Room, Budapest,
Yeah.
like all of it. We've been hearing about it for so long, and then it all just kind of just happened. And now we'll probably never go back to something like that because she's gone. Elena's moving on to different stuff. And so I think for that reason is why it's probably a little bit most disappointing because that kind of stuff was been talked about for so long and then just
Yeah.
kind of like rolled over.
Like I expected Budapest to be this like
It should have been like a TV show or something.
well,
Yeah.
it should have
that's what I'm
been
saying, yeah.
it should have been more like Bourne, car chases through the city,
Yes.
gunfights on the bridge, like just craziness. And all it really was is they hid in a subway station, and she decided
And
to
was
blow
there
up a
for
little
what,
girl.
3 days or whatever it was.
You
Yeah.
know? And the crazy thing is like she talks about like, oh, I owe Clint for Budapest, but he doesn't even know what actually happened in Budapest.
Right.
So like, she doesn't really owe him anything.
Right. Yeah, it is what it was for me at the end of the day. Meh is the appropriate term over the overall.
All right, well, score updated. We got our first losses on the board. Let's get some more losses on the board.
Ooh. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Marvel What If. Marvel's What If. Patrick, I'm going to let you start with this one.
All right, because am I the one who loves it the most?
I don't know how Jake
I don't
feels.
think so.
No. Okay, so I love What If. What If I was like one of the only people other than maybe Dwayne, I think, who didn't have it at like the bottom of their overall Marvel list, if you can call it that, for the year. I love What If because it took so many swings at doing something so vastly different and so like dark and just everything about What If works for me because I wanted to see them taking swings to do something different, putting characters into situations where what happens when you change certain events and like what does it do to that timeline? What does it do to that character? I was always a big fan of the comic, and the comics have always been hit and miss in any shape or fashion because depending on what you're changing, like maybe the story wasn't as interesting as they thought it was. But I'm more appreciative of you taking that swing and trying it, whether it works or not overall for someone. I get it, and that's fine. Like, What If is not made for everybody. I had been wanting something What If for so long, and it worked for me on every level. It was a big win for me. Plus, it was Marvel's first animated series, and I thought that like that's a big thing to look at too.
Who else is positive?
I'm extremely positive.
Okay.
If I had to pick, like, if I could take it down to a single episode, the Supreme Strange episode. That's the best thing. That's the best thing Marvel has ever done. Period. Now,
Sean, you're on an island on this one, bud.
I know I am. That's fine. I'll be on my island.
Now, as far as the rest of What If, I think that the T'Challa Star-Lord was a great episode. I think the last two episodes were really good. I think the way that it all tied in together was great. I also think that, you know, we talk about comic book movies and whatever and whatnot, and this is the most comic book thing Marvel has ever done.
Absolutely.
Like, hands down. This is the most comic like they literally took a comic book and turned it into a series.
Yep.
And by that I mean, like, even with when you have things like, you know, Avengers versus X-Men or even like Civil War in the comics, right? Everyone thinks Civil War was like its own graphic novel. It wasn't. It's a bunch of issues from a bunch of separate comics that are all one story and then like put together.
I do too, Jake.
So so I think that's like the coolest thing about What If is like it's its own, like each episode is its own comic, and then it finally gets to the last two episodes and things start to kind of come together and then finally do come together. And on top of that, it introduced everyone to the multiverse in a way that I think is palatable and understandable that it wasn't in Loki.
Sure, totally.
I think Loki, for a lot of people, they were left completely confused about like what exactly variants were and how they worked, what the multiverse was. And What If did a much better job of explaining it. And at the end of the day, I felt like the series as a whole was like when you were a kid and you had your action figures in the sandbox and you made up stories. Yeah. And I was like, that's what the show is supposed to be. So if that's what the show is supposed to be, and that's what we got, how can you complain about the show?
I'm so glad that I'm not alone in this. I thought I was going to be on an island, so I feel better.
It's a win for me.
Jake, put me on my island. Jake, what do you think?
It's a win for me, and even though like I loved some episodes way more than I enjoyed some others, I love when, and this goes for any studio director, writer, whatever, just when they're able to be so effing creative with things and how they tell stories. Because a lot of times for stuff, we get so locked in on one road of how one thing is supposed to be done. And this is an example of Marvel, who has done 20 plus movies over the last 11 years. They've taken their first chance at an animated series. And instead of just being a basic series about like Iron Man or some character, they're literally showing characters die. They're doing this multiverse thing. They're doing all these crazy zombies. They're doing all these crazy stories.
We got the Watcher.
I mean, that's a big deal too. It's just, and ultimately, once you watch it and finish all 9 episodes, you realize that.
Is it 9 or 8?
I thought it was 9. It is 9, right?
Okay, we were supposed to have a 10 episode.
It was supposed to be 10. One got pushed into next season.
Yeah. But ultimately, like going in, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, this is gonna be a fun ride. We're gonna see these characters, different stories." But at the end, you realize, "Oh, wait, this isn't just a throwaway animated fun series. This is actually something that we could end up seeing play a huge role down the line, a la what's happening next year in Multiverse of Madness."
Right.
Like, that is something that's going to be playing a big role in the future of what the MCU has. Characters like her, I don't know if I can point to her, Captain Carter, we could eventually see in the future as well.
Here, Jake, show her big, Jake.
Hold on.
Oh, hold on, I fucked up.
You need help there, Sean?
No.
You sure?
There you go. Yeah.
Thanks.
Like,
You're welcome.
Things like that are, even though they seem like a throwaway story or just have a fun gag where Hank Pym's actually a bad guy, it is something.
So good, by the way.
That's my favorite episode.
That episode was great. That episode was great. But it's fun because you're going in with no expectations, but then you realize, oh, wait, I could eventually see that in the future. That story doesn't feel like it's actually finished. So yeah, it's a win for me.
Well, and again, this kind of similar to my Black Widow review. This is only a loss for me because I think that some of the executions were a little weak. I think, like, I love this in concept. I love a lot of the characters we got out of it, or the variants we got out of it, if you will. I don't like. For me, there were a few glaring issues, and I kind of briefly talked about this with PJ the other night on the phone about the Strange episode. I had a big glaring issue with. Every episode is one minor change, with 2 exceptions. Right? Because every episode is set up on the premise of what if this one thing happened differently. And the Strange episode, it's like, what if this one thing happened differently, but also, like, in order for that to work, we have to change 3 or 4 other things. The second half of that episode, because that episode really has 2 premises. It has the premise of, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart, aka Christine, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What if Doctor Strange lost Christine instead of his hands? That whole premise for me kind of it didn't hold a lot of water based on the Strange that we have and know, and that to me feels like more than one change. That being said, the actual payoff for that episode is one of my favorite parts of the series. Getting Supreme Strange, or whatever we're calling him, is fantastic. I'm so glad he's going to show up again, because I like that sort of, instead of getting Wizard Doctor Strange, we're getting Warlock Doctor Strange. We're getting someone who's bound to these infernal powers, a lot like he is in the comics that we haven't seen in the movies yet. Now it twists him a little bit more evil. The Marvel Zombies one. Marvel Zombies is a comic run that I really enjoy. And I just kind of felt like the angle that it took to present us with that was a little bit off. But where this series shines for me is in the One Bad Day or Fury's Bad Week, whatever that episode.
Oh yeah, that one's really good.
With Hank Pym and all that. That whole episode for me is perfect. Oh, yeah. Because it harkens back to Phase 1 when we had the idea that all of these movies take place in a 1-week span. I loved that setup. I just thought it was brilliant. I had no idea what was going on. The murder mystery concept really worked well for me. And the finale worked really well for me. I just think the rest of the episodes and kind of the execution on some of the concepts, to me, puts it at a loss. However, it's probably the thing I'm most excited to get more of. If
Me
that,
too.
if
I am
if
so
that
glad
makes
it got
sense.
renewed. And I'm also glad that Marvel Zombies is getting its own animated series, and I'm sure it'll be like a different take on what If was already
And
doing, but them using it as a springboard to see what can we do
mhm.
is really, really cool.
Yeah,
For
and go ahead.
for me, the only like I guess lacking piece of execution was I think that they should have done this more in the style of Visions and given each
Oh,
director
That
also
would have been cool.
kind of control of the animation and change the animation style with each episode, because I think that would have helped a lot of things connect a little bit better with people that it didn't quite connect with, is if the animation could have changed as well, because I think the animation held back um certain episodes as well.
well, the other thing I heard this. I don't know where I heard this. Maybe it was on Mr. Sunday Movies or something. Um, I think these were supposed to be longer episodes than what we got. That
I
they
don't
were
know
all
about
Possible,
written. That they
possibly.
were. I think all the episodes were written to be longer than what we ultimately got, and maybe that changes my perspective. Like the Marvel Zombies one in particular feels like it's missing a chunk of something. Um,
I wonder
Yeah,
if part of that
that one
is,
felt a little wonky. In
yeah,
and
the
I
in
wonder if a part of
in the
that,
middle. In the middle it
yeah,
felt a little wonky.
I wonder if a part of that came down to, we know that they lost an entire episode, right? Because of what was going on with COVID. So I
Mhm.
wonder if some of them, they looked at it and it was like, what can we get away with as far as the show is concerned to make the episode still like watchable?
Yeah. And
Um,
I think
which makes
that's
the most
definitely how it
sense.
feels to me. I think it was definitely a matter of, and again, I don't know where I heard this, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think it was a matter of they couldn't spare the animation time because of COVID.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, don't take this loss as a negative from me. It's more a matter of I I had such high hopes for this series, and I felt a little let down. And again, it's that whole be mindful of your expectations, or what is it that Knapsack says? Um, anyways,
I can't remember, to
yeah,
be honest.
but he's got a line for this, like right, like don't let your expectations ruin the product. For me, it did, and I'm at least I'm gonna be upfront and honest about that. I wanted something else out of this. I like some of the concepts we got, but ultimately, I think we could have gotten more. Um,
Well,
so
what did you want out of it that you didn't get? That's
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Speculate responsibly. Thank you, Andy. Um, um, I don't know. Um, I think the Black Panther episode's a really good example of like that's the one. It's got the one change, or Yondu picks up Black Panther instead of picking up Star Lord. Um, I think that's kind of the best example of what I wanted to see out of all of them. Whereas some of them felt like this is a whole alternate universe, less than a what if. Because like Marvel Zombies is not a what if; it's its own thing. Yeah, you could frame it as a what if, um, but like Age of Ultron is a great example. And I mean the comic, not the movie. Um, one of the reasons I like the finale so much because it reminded me a lot of the Age of Ultron comic. Granted, we got something different. Um, I think that's fair. I don't know
I
that I
mean,
agree
but
with that.
every show doesn't need to have the depth of Loki. Like it doesn't need, like especially like I understand we're all adults and animation isn't just for kids, but I think the major audience of this, and kind of the reason it was, as I think Joey put it earlier, multiverse light on the explanation, was this was their way to explain the multiverse for children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very easy way to do that.
Don't mind the spinning Sean, by the way, guys.
Yeah, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. um But
And I mean, the truth is, like, to your point, like, if you've ever read any of the What If comics, that I think I was always going to be fine with that because as far as the comics were concerned, like, it was always 30 pages, right? Like, you're doing the
yeah,
same thing in the same amount of
yeah,
time in a paper format in the same way. So, like, I always knew that no matter what we were looking at, it was always going to be on the thinner side because you're not
yeah.
doing, like, it's more about the superficial change, not the bigger depth of it.
Yeah,
That's
it's not like every episode isn't and I mean they can't. They just can't do a deep character exploration of what that change truly means to the character. They kind of have to keep it more surface level because they only have, 25 minutes to get through the
yeah.
episode or 25 to 45 or however long some of the episodes are and it's like it it isn't always going to be that. Like even if you read What If comics, they're not that deep. They're not.
Yeah.
Like
No.
they're like every single What If isn't, Punisher kills the Marvel universe. Like that's not every single What If. I mean, that is a great example of a What If, but they're not all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some very superficial ones, just like character change. Like, what if Aunt May had died instead of Uncle Ben? Which, ironically, we'll probably get to with like the No Way Home of it all. But like, the what if has always kind of been that way, but it's always been superficial, I think. And ultimately, like, I guess going into it knowing that, that's what I always wanted. Like, I just like seeing the initial what happens when this thing happens, and that's what for me is always fun. So I guess that we move on from what if, right? With the win, loss, and meh.
I mean, I will address Max's last comment.
Oh, I didn't see that.
The content didn't feel that adult. I mean, outside of a couple things, for the most part, it was very much MCU. And you can't tell me that Party Thor felt like an adult concept. Like it's not. Like outside of Strange Supreme and kind of What If Earth lost all its heroes, like it's not super adult. And even Strange Supreme, as dark as it was, like I think a lot of that will go over kids' heads, like some of the sex jokes in old Disney, movies. Like it's just like they knew their audience well enough, and they're like, okay, so we can get away with this, and then we'll pepper this in for the parents that are watching with their kids. Like that's what it really felt like for me, and it worked for me.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, I get why people may not like What If. Like I knew going into it, no matter how it came out, like What If was always going to be divisive for the audience. There's a reason that even the comic runs were never like terribly long. Like they would go in waves, do the next version, wave, do the next version, because What If doesn't sell itself overall as an idea for long running sustainability, and that's okay. I actually appreciated that in this, that they were like, we're gonna string it all together at the end, and Guardians of the Multiverse was like such a cool concept.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's something that they don't do in the comics at all. Like each What If is its own thing, and they don't touch upon each other at all. And I mean, and they could have done that with the show, and I actually completely expected them to do that. I never expected things to come together and kind of give us the tangential touch of the cosmic that we got with the Watcher. Totally. And just the implications that kind of brings in to everything with the Watcher and with what are we going to next? Is Eternals next?
Shang Chi.
Shang Chi next. Yeah, which Shang-Chi, I mean, even that, some of the deals with some of the cosmic stuff as well. But like the Watcher ties in a lot with some of the stuff that comes up in Eternals.
Yeah. And I just want to throw it out there because we didn't bring it up other than like we've mentioned him a few times, but Jeffrey Wright was so good as the Watcher. And I'm excited.
I can't wait to see him show up live action wise.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was about to say. Is I can't wait to see Jeffrey Wright in live action as the Watcher down the line because it's 100% coming, and I cannot wait.
The only other nitpick I have about What If James Spader not coming back as the voice of Ultron.
Yeah.
I
All
was
right.
kind of.
That one's a huge L. Big L.
You folks probably have a better barometer than I do because my computer took a shit on me.
I think the chats were all losses for what
Yeah.
Their loss. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Everyone except for Dwayne, Jake, and I.
Well, I will say I'm glad we have the positive crew on camera. Sorry about that, folks. My computer is deciding to die on me out of nowhere, and I don't know what else to really do about that. So we'll continue to fight.
Okay, we're almost to the end. You know,
fight through it.
we got 4 things
yeah.
left to talk about. 4 things. We got this.
Cool.
All right,
Mike
wants
was
everyone to
also a
know.
win.
Yeah, he's
Mike was a
mostly
win. Okay. I thought Mike. I wasn't sure with Mike because he had mentioned that Arcane comment. I will say if you haven't seen Arcane, go watch Arcane. It's great.
Arcane is great.
All right, Shang-Chi, I don't have a whole lot to say about it except for it was wonderful. It was a win because I know that you folks will gush about it much more than I will. Shang-Chi was a huge win for me. I had a lot more fun with it than I expected. And we got Trevor Slattery again, who is one of my favorite characters. And we got the real Mandarin, although I like that they didn't call him the Mandarin because it's kind of an unfortunate.
It was a joke, like, oh, he played a joke and he called himself the Mandarin. And
yeah.
And he named himself after a fruit.
Yeah.
And he says a chicken dish.
Chicken dish.
Chicken dish, yeah.
I will say, up until 2 weeks ago, this was an absolute landslide of a victory on my favorite thing, anything this year from Marvel. No Way Home is my favorite, as I think for most people. But I think as far as attempting something different, opening your doors to different things in film, genres, ideas, characters, worlds, this is the best thing that Marvel has done in years. I think the idea of Shang-Chi and the world that he operates in is so interesting and unique compared to anything that's happening. Is it Simu? Is that his name? Simu Liu, right?
Yep.
Simu Liu? He is an absolute superstar. The dude is amazing, not just in the role, but in general. I love everything that this movie did. I love the last act with all of the dragons and the whole culture aspect of it all. The fighting martial arts is some of my favorite stuff in movies, and what they were able to do with this movie and martial arts, specifically that butt scene, was amazing. The music, the score, all of it was just top notch. I don't have a single bad thing to say about this movie. I loved everything about it. This movie rocks.
So Shang-Chi is in my top 5
All time.
Marvel things all time.
Okay.
And part of that is Shang-Chi highlights one of the biggest problems that I had with Captain Marvel. All of the MCU origin stories, for the most part, were like, it's a comic book film, but it's also this. And Captain Marvel didn't do that. It was just like a comic book film. There was no like genre attached to it, really. And this went back to what we got with like Ant-Man and Guardians and all
The Winter
all
Soldier.
of those, the Winter Soldier. Like it went back to those things where we got a Marvel comic book film with a genre attached to it, and it's like this was very much a martial arts epic, and I loved it. Like I think that the opening scene is probably the most beautiful thing that Marvel has shot. Like the fight between the Mandarin and Shang-Chi's mother is it is gorgeous.
The sweeping camera shots are like,
Like everything about it is beautiful. And I think that Cheryl, to your complaint, part of that is because that character doesn't exist in the comics. So there's not a whole lot to bring to that character currently. They kind of have to create that story as it goes because that character doesn't exist.
100%.
Okay. Peach.
Look, this was until No Way Home came out, kind of like Jake said. This was like 100% my number one everything I feel like for the year. I love Shang-Chi. I'm such a sucker for martial arts movies, and I was so glad to see Marvel finally like dive into that, because this character's been sitting, waiting. Like, what a great way to dive into it, and it just hits right, and it feels so great. And they, again, like you brought it up with the Trevor Slattery thing, like they also took things from movies that people shit on all the time, and they're like, you know what? We're gonna double down on it. Like, here's the real version of the character you wanted. But guess what? Trevor Slattery still exists, and he matters. And I kind of like that they do stuff like that, but also letting all these characters exist and be like what it is. It felt like it had such a great place, and I had so much fun watching it. The fight sequences are amazing. The fight on the side of the building on the rafters is one of my favorite things that the MCU has ever done. I mean, Dwayne already nailed it. Like, the opening alone is like the best opening 10 minutes of any Marvel movie, maybe ever. And it just works so well. Everything about it, like, it was made by people who care about martial arts movies, but it's also made to make people care about martial arts movies. That matters. Like, we need people to see why stuff like that was so impactful on people like me when I was growing up. Like, there's a lot of people who don't go outside their comfort zone to watch things. Shang-Chi is like the right version of doing that. In, not appropriating it, but it's a love letter to it. And I like that about it. I just think it's cool.
Absolutely. And just for everyone who's, because I remember when Black Widow came out and people were complaining about Taskmaster, and they were like, oh, but Taskmaster's like not an important character. It's fine that they changed him. But then in Shang-Chi, they made Death Dealer like kind of a like bigger deal. Death Dealer is like the biggest bitch in the MC, like in Marvel. like Shang-Chi he only ever shows up once in the comics, and Shang-Chi beats the brakes off of Death Dealer. Like, he like kills him like in a couple frames.
Is he like knife hands?
No. Death Dealer is the Mandarin's right hand ninja.
Okay.
Yeah, the character that everyone was like, oh, I want more of that. In the comics, that dude is like
the worst.
Absolutely not important at all. Like, he is in, and I'm not even exaggerating, he's in like 4 frames of the comic.
It's my Aldrich Killian rant.
And it's like I can complain about a character that has substantially more history not being correct, and like it like that was my big problem. It's like Taskmaster, like, you can make Death Dealer a more substantial character because he has no like history in the comics. Taskmaster has a ton of history, and there's a ton behind that character that was missing. Yeah, but he, like Sean said, but he looks cool.
Yeah. That's 100% it.
So I think this is a big win across the board for us.
This is a big win.
I'm gonna go watch it right now.
Oh, there was one more thing.
Go ahead.
There was something else I was gonna say about it, and I forgot what. Oh, this is another perfect example of Marvel, similar to what they kind of did with Age of Ultron, with WandaVision. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but after every single episode of WandaVision, they said they like suggested go watch Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Similar to that did for Age of Ultron. This like took all of those movies that like had things lacking and kind of like brought them full circle and like flushed them out a little bit. I mean, granted, this Trevor Slattery thing was already kind of flushed out in Hail to the King.
Which
one
is great,
shots,
by the way.
like like because people like seem to forget that one shots exist,
and they're bringing them
well,
back.
Marvel. Well, hold on. Marvel seems to forget that.
No. Marvel's
they are all on Disney Plus.
I know, but they were inaccessible for a long time.
Well, that's because they didn't have a place to put them
to be. Yeah.
But like outside they were on a Blu-ray.
Yeah, like the second Disney Plus was up, the one shots were one of the first things I watched on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I love all of them. I'm so glad that we're getting more of them. The one last note I have about this film is the inclusion of the Kitsune and the Kirin and all the and the Phoenix and all the fantastical creatures was what put this movie over the edge for me. I will always be a sucker for um, getting fantasy to be more mainstream.
Yes.
You can see by my fucking backdrop, I'm a big old fantasy nerd. Um, and whether that's Eastern or Western or what have you, I will take any and all fantasy we can get in a mainline in a very mainstream home. So I'm glad we got that.
I feel that way about martial arts movies too. Like
Yeah.
legitimately, and that's why I wanted to prop it up and give him such credit, because also like the bus scene, that in the bus when it's going along the side, it kind of looks like a side scroller from a video game, is brilliant. Like they really made martial arts as cool as people want to believe it is, because it is. But for whatever reason, subtitles scare people, and so I was glad that this movie like opened the door to be like, I'm hoping people will go check out other things. Like that's my hope.
Yeah.
Because I love the genre so much that I want more people to go watch those things.
Yeah.
The
Go ahead.
the only thing I'm worried about, and there's kind of rumors of this because they're kind of like making these moves in the comics. I don't want them to make Shang-Chi Iron Fist.
No.
Please don't.
No.
Please don't.
They're making that move in the comics,
Please don't.
kind of. I really don't want that to happen because, and I understand some of people's complaints, at least about the actual show. I don't understand people's complaints about Danny Rand, because Danny Rand was always a white guy. He's always been white. It wasn't a cultural appropriation. He's literally always been a white guy.
That's Danny Rand.
Yeah.
I might be one of the few people that really likes the Iron Fist show.
I had issues with season 1, but by the end of season 2, I was down for season 3.
Yeah.
Like I really was looking forward to getting into the other cities and getting into that whole mythology and like opening
gun
up.
hands.
I mean that too, but I like was really excited about opening up the mythology because one of those cities is Ta Lo.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Jake Berlin, you've got to go because you are an adult and have a big boy job and got to be up early. So, Jake, thanks for joining us. We got a late start. We got a few movies left,
All
but
good. Thank you,
before
guys.
you go, Jake, I'm going to move on to our next one quickly. I just want a quick win or loss from you. Venom.
Okay. Night, guys.
Great. Okay. Jake, where can they find you?
Twitter at Qui-Gon Jake. Apocalypse Movies, or a certain point of view. Here randomly if Sean ever invites me.
Yep.
The Whiskey Jedi. All that good stuff.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Love you.
Bye,
man.
guys.
PJ, Venom, win or loss?
Loss.
Dwayne,
Like-
Venom, win or loss?
I'm gonna be practical on this one, because for the most part this wasn't really Marvel's thing, but it made a ton of money. I'm gonna call it a win.
Fair.
Okay. I like that.
Like I mean, like critically the movie wasn't great, but like no one was expecting it to be great.
Fair.
I mean, like let's be honest, no one was expecting it
I'll
to
say
be
this.
great, but it
I
still made more money than it had any right to.
and I liked it more than the first one, so I guess there's that.
I'm only calling it a win on that like kind of
Yeah. No, it's fair.
level. Like other than that, to be completely honest, I haven't seen the movie. I have only seen the post credit scenes.
That's fine. That's fine. It doesn't matter if you've seen it or haven't. It doesn't matter. I just want a win or loss. And chat, you guys let me know what your win loss is for Venom, and we'll get the taker updated.
Let there be carnage.
But our next film is, and I'm using the term film generously here. Now I'm gonna do what Dwayne just did and say I haven't seen this film either. I know I'm hosting a show about like the MCU, and I haven't seen this one. I honestly just wasn't really that interested in seeing the Eternals. I don't know why. From what I hear, I hear mixed reviews that it's decent, that it's not. I don't know. So you guys sell me on it one way or the other.
So I love the Eternals.
Okay.
There were some problems with it. It's in my top 10, I think, of MCU properties.
Oh.
There are some problems with it. But I think that Chloe Zhao did a great job.
Yep.
The film is beautiful. Like, it is stunning.
Strikingly.
Yeah. But I think the problem that a lot of people had with it is it's a very much what's the I think the problem people have with Eternals is the same problems people would have had if DC would have went forward with New Gods.
Yeah.
Eternals is such a like when you're trying to adapt anything that Kirby put his hands on, I just get good luck.
Yeah. Well, and
'Cause,
ironically,
like, it's so much. It's so dense and it's so much, and it's like the Eternals, the concept of the Eternals is like such a huge concept. But like, yeah, like Patty said, seeing the Celestials on screen,
Dude.
I was like, yo, we are going there. And this plays into like why the Watcher is such a big deal. And like when we get into and this is one of the things that I'm kind of like looking forward to with Doctor Strange, although it looks like they're going to have Cersei take the Doctor Strange role in this and convince the Celestials why Earth deserves to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that Doctor Strange had to do with He Who Remains. It's a different storyline that didn't involve either character, but it looks like that's what they're taking from it and moving it into their kind of lane. Cheryl, I would say that it is a precursor to other stuff that's coming out.
It's
Not
100%.
not only on the cosmic scale. So I would imagine that when we get into Thor: Love and Thunder as well as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we're going to be seeing some stuff that is going to lean into things that happen in Eternals, but also
Blade.
Whenever we get some info about Blade, I think Blade is going to lean heavy into that.
Yeah, like don't be
scene.
shocked if Kit Harington is in Blade.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
And I love Kit Harington, so I'm okay with that.
And there were a lot of things that I think there were a lot of like quick like nods and things thrown in Eternals. They mentioned Excalibur, which is a different sword than the sword that Kit Harington has at the end of the movie. The sword that Kit Harington has at the end of the movie is the Ebony Blade, which he wields as the Black Knight. Excalibur also exists in the MCU.
Right.
And is wielded by an X-Man at one point.
Yep. Okay, so let me ask this. How was Richard Malden in this?
He's good.
Okay.
Fine.
He's
Cool.
Madden.
Is it Madden?
Yeah,
What's
I was
Malden?
like, for a second, I was like, who is he talking about? And then I'm like, oh,
I knew
he's talking about
exactly who
Richard
he
Madden.
meant.
I just want the two of them.
So
to succeed.
he's a. How do I explain?
You could spoil away. I mean, we're not.
Well, no,
you know.
I'm trying to like how to explain his characterization. He's almost like if you combined Peacemaker with Superman.
He's 100% Henry Cavill meets John Cena's.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's not a good guy. He's just steadfast on the mission that he's been given.
Let's say he's Peacemaker. He's Henry Cavill Superman mixed with Homelander.
Yeah.
No, because he's not psychotic.
Okay.
He's
He
I have a
believes he's
mission.
doing the right thing.
Yeah,
He
he's-
wants
he-
to he wants to
he
unlock
has
the
a-
deviant.
No. He has a mission, and he believes that he has to complete his mission, and he's willing to do anything to complete it.
Even
Unlike
if he-
Homelander, even if he has to like
Yeah.
kill the other Eternals, he's like, this is my mission.
Because
Whereas,
it's the
like,
thing I was made to do.
Yeah. Whereas like Homelander is just, a sociopath.
A crazy person. Okay,
Um,
so I think
real
chat's
quick.
calling this a win. PJ, you're calling this a win.
I am calling it a win, and I wanted to piggyback off of a point that Dwayne made earlier. Seeing the Celestials, man, there's a shot at the end of the movie. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's the first time that you see a Celestial looking down on Earth from the perspective of being on
Yeah.
Earth. That is arguably one of the most terrifyingly cool things I've ever seen. And
That's
it made me,
either in the trailer or I saw that shot somewhere, and it's a beautiful shot.
No.
It's-
The one that
no,
one that in the trailer is not the one that he's
Okay.
talking about.
no,
That is also in the movie, but the one that
Yes.
he's talking about is like you feel
you
like,
feel the
oh
scared.
yeah, you're like, oh fuck.
And that's what PJ, I think, is that the shot you were talking about where you said that's why you want to see Galactus so bad?
Yes, because it
Okay.
gave me that feeling of what it would be like to be standing on the ground and you look up and there's something in the sky outside of the world staring at you. And like it's so creepy and amazing and wonderful. But like I like that this movie took a chance to be different. Like Chloe Zhao got to do what Chloe Zhao wanted to do, and it shows.
Yeah.
Like the movie is her tempo, everything about it is paced to being her kind of movie. The battles are like they're beautiful to look at, but it's more about the characters. It's about the relationships. It's about what does it mean to be these characters and over time, the things that they've had to do. And I really loved that. I thought that it took a lot of swings in a way that people say that they want Marvel to take swings. They say they want it to break
Ye-
formula. Then they get mad when it breaks formula. It's very confusing.
The scene with Brian Tyree Henry
Yes.
in Japan
Yes.
in 1944.
Yeah. After the bomb.
Yeah. That scene is heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And
Also-
like you feel like he's given up on humanity and he's like, fuck these people.
Barry Keoghan too. His scene as Druig when they're in is
Yeah.
it I want to say it's
When they're in like Mesopotamia.
Yeah,
yeah.
and-
when he leaves.
when he leaves, and it's
Yeah.
the same thing, but instead of being done with with like what had happened, it was like I'm done with the Eternals.
Yeah.
Like I'm done with this thing that we're doing. Like they really push the
Yo,
characters in interesting directions.
Kevin Feige kept talking about how like it's a love story.
Wait,
between,
I lost something here. Why are we
Um,
talking about Drukari?
I'll tell. I'm about to get to it.
Yeah.
When Kevin Feige talked about it's a love story between Cersei and Icarus, it's not. It's a love
It's not.
story between Droog and Makari. Like
Yes.
their love is like, I mean,
Real.
there's love all over this movie. It like truly is like love is at the center of it.
It's the most romantic
like-
MCU movie by a lot.
Yeah,
I would just
absolutely.
like it known that Games Workshop would like to sue for the use of the term Drukari. It is a copyrighted phrase. You can't. Oof, man. Sorry, Games Workshop. Anyways, I'm sold on this film.
Yeah,
The two of you have.
I think you would like it. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, the two of you have sold me on this film, and chat, chat has sold me on it. So I'm in. Absolutely in. If we have one left, two left. We have two left.
Two left. We got two left.
This is a marathon.
We're almost there, Sean. We're almost there.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, by the time we're done, it's surprising we'll probably get through this in 2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
Which is quick.
Yeah. Next year's will be worse. Okay.
No,
So
next won't. There's less stuff coming out next year.
is there really?
Yeah, one less show, one less movie.
Yep.
That's okay. That's shocking. All right. I want to talk about Amber Maxwell. Have a good night. Feel better.
Bye, guys. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay.
And everyone else who's bounced out when we had 4 people on screen, feel better. All of you. I know you all left because you have COVID, so feel better.
Or they just
Uh,
left because Jake's no longer here. Fine.
Yeah, they were only here to see Jake. We get it. We get it. He's handsome. All right. So, Hawkeye. Now, Hawkeye's a Christmas movie.
Hell yeah, it is.
PJ, you love Christmas movies.
I do love Christmas movies.
Did this give you all the Christmas jollies?
It did about halfway through. It took it a little bit, but once we got to the 3rd episode, the Christmas jollies were felt. I had a really good time. This is another one actually where I think it could have benefited from another episode. But I'll say this: it's a win alone for Kate Bishop. It's a win alone for her relationship with Yelena, and it's a win also because we got Vincent D'Onofrio officially in the MCU playing Kingpin. For that alone, those are like 3 of the reasons that the show is a win. But I also have to say, it was nice to see Jeremy Renner finally getting a chance to be Hawkeye. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, we've spent so much time with him being Hawkeye, but not getting to, like, explore Hawkeye a lot. Age of Ultron did a great job, I think. I'm one of the few people who really loves the scene at his house. And I was glad to finally see that explored more, to see his family more, to see Clint Barton as Clint Barton. And so to get more of that was really great. It's just kind of a bummer that, and not a bummer in a sense, like Kate Bishop's so great. She's almost so great that it overtakes some of the rest of it. But that's okay because it's like a two-handed show. It worked for me. There's a lot of it that was just really, really good. Similarly, though, like Cap and Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's missing an episode towards the end. I'm not sure exactly where, but there should have been at least another 30 or so, 40 minutes.
I think it's an easy fix. I think you just introduced Kingpin earlier on.
I don't think so. I think what it was missing, at least for me, Echo's story is in the middle of her story. And we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll be getting more Echo. So
Echo is getting an entire show. So yeah, the story, that's kind of why it became an afterthought, is because it is another show. So I think that what was missing for me, kind of, and they're kind of doing this with Book of Boba Fett, I wanted to see more of his time as Ronin.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
Because he spent 5 years
being
Ronin.
Yeah, and we don't have any of that.
Yeah. So like we needed a little bit more of that. And I think that some of that could have been done with flashbacks, maybe throughout the first 2 or 3 episodes until Kate figures out that he was the Ronin. I think that kind of would have filled it out. I also think that there was a key piece. I do think that there was a key piece missing with his deafness. I would have rather it happened a little bit more like the comics and been caused by, not necessarily Kazi, even though Kazi is the one that does it in the comics. Could have been caused by anyone. It could have been caused by Echo, for that matter.
Boxing his ears or something.
Well, in the comics, Kazi catches an arrow, breaks it in half, and stabs it into his ears.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But it could have been anything to cause it. But I just think that having it happen in the show and not already have happened would have given it another nice layer. It also would have given a better context to the fight when he can't hear.
Mm-hmm.
If it had happened like in that fight or shortly before that fight with Echo. And it would have given her line, "You rely too much on your abilities," not talking about his bow and arrow, but his ability to hear when she's fighting him. It would have given that line a lot more weight, because she steps on his hearing aid and then he fixes it like 3 minutes later
Right.
and puts it right back in his ear.
Or even,
Like-
I'm okay with it being pre-established. I would have liked it maybe if it was
Or
made
make him
worse.
fight with it for the rest of the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
made worse or made permanent. You know, in a
Well,
certain way.
Not necessarily permanent, but like don't let him fix his hearing aid, and he has to
Right.
figure out how to fight without his hearing aid. For
Yeah,
because
because one of the best moments in the show for me was when he didn't have it and he's trying to talk with Kate and they're at the car and he clearly can't hear her and they're trying to communicate and their communication's breaking down a little bit because of it. But then as he's driving, things start to get better and I liked that. And I think it would have been interesting if the show had continued to let that be a thing.
Yeah. Ultimately, for me, this show's a huge win for a few reasons. I think that, like, I loved their use of the swordsman as sort of this red herring, and I thought in the last episode his payoff was really good. I really liked. I loved Kate. It's funny because I didn't really like Kate in the first episode. I thought, okay, this character's gonna annoy me, and she really grew on me really well, like very well, very fast. I'm glad we're using Kingpin. I sure hope he ain't dead. I don't think he
Oh,
is.
he's not.
Yeah.
He's not.
This is literally a storyline from the comics. That he's not dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and I'll say this: it's funny. Like you bring it up, and I know why you're saying it, and I get it. But like, they didn't go out of their way to bring back D'Onofrio,
right,
just to kill
him.
D'Onofrio.
It's from a Daredevil comic.
Yep.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. When we
Yeah.
get to the next thing we're going to talk about,
Yep.
called "The Man Without Fear: Parts of the Whole."
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna disagree with you here. I think they added something to this film that I actually think is kind of missing in No Way Home. There's one thing that Raimi has done really well in the past Spider-Man films, and that's showing New York as a character
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form. And the first Avengers does it really well. I think that I liked them being the kind of living, breathing part of New York.
Hawkeye did it great with this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I was gonna say, not just that, but also it gives the dynamic and gives a layer to Clint that I think people haven't quite caught or like latched onto. And it's like Clint is always his best when he's part of a team.
Yes.
When he was alone, he was the Ronin.
Right.
And he was killing people and
he was
messy and
and before he had Natasha, he wasn't the Ronin, but that's kind of his outlook on the world. And
was
then
very Ronin-esque.
he met Natasha, and that changed him. And then he became an Avenger, and that changed him even more. And then he lost everything and was alone, and he went back to that dark place. So like it's an aspect of the character that he works better with a team.
Yeah. And I think Dwayne's right. And I think, Sean, you're right about the LARPer thing. And one of the things I actually liked a lot about the show in general was that they spent a lot of time doing.
fair.
I mean, you're not supposed to be attached to him.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's a fair, for as much as they're in it, I think that's a fair complaint.
But what I was going to say is like the people who kept stopping Clint and being like, thank you for saving the world. Or things like that were really great because, again, it kind of also gave that ground level that there are people who are appreciative of the stuff, but Clint also just doesn't want to be appreciated like that, which I've always,
I don't think it's that. It's, and I'm talking from my own personal experience. It's a very awkward thing.
Yeah. That's what I think
because there's no appropriate response.
Right.
When people
say those things.
Because what are you supposed to say back? Thank you for thanking me. Like,
right.
Yeah. It's like it's a really awkward interaction to have.
Totally.
So like I've always felt it as like that's kind of what it is, and it's also it's like, well, you don't really need to thank me for doing my job.
Right.
Yeah, but there is also the element of like choosing to go into that line of work.
Stop this.
Okay.
Rogers the Musical is bad.
I
The
thought,
point of Rogers the Musical is to be bad.
and I will say, I enjoyed it as a one-time gag. I didn't enjoy it as the end credit scene.
Nope.
I think that,
I think that was the worst decision they made in the entire show.
well, and especially considering, like, and I wish we had Maxwell here for this one, because I'd love to hear his opinion on this. But like, it almost, to me, painted Broadway in a bad light. Because if you compare that single shot of, that single scene of Rogers the Musical, versus Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, at least they have good costuming, right?
Well,
like you could have done more for the costuming. You could have done more for something.
No, I mean that's Broadway though, and I mean Broadway's minimalist.
Yeah.
Like that's just Broadway, and I get it. I get what you're saying, but I'll say this: I mean, it's clearly an homage to Hamilton. Like that's the point. It's an homage to Hamilton, and fine and well and good, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the people who get wrapped up in it, I'm like, I think intentionally it's supposed to not be great though. Like that's kind of the point. Like they left, they leave it. You know what I'm saying? Like they make it a point that Hawkeye and his family walked out.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the reason they walked out.
I think it's the reason he walked out, but I don't think it's the reason the rest of his family walked out. But also I think it was just a bad decision to make that the post credit scene on.
I don't disagree.
I would have just released it on YouTube.
The end credit scene did not need to be Kingpin. I think that actually would have been worse.
Well, Chris just wants his Kingpin.
Chris just
gonna,
wants Kingpin.
He's gonna get it.
Yeah.
You literally just had him, get shot off screen. Like you can't put him in the post credit scene, otherwise it defeats the purpose of doing that off screen.
But we could have got an end credit scene with Echo or with Yelena or with
it could have been something
Madam Mask
to move things forward.
I'll say this: one of the things I think that this Phase 4 has done kind of not the best has been a lot of the post credit stuff. I think Eternals was the exception, and obviously Black Widow had the one that led to Hawkeye. But for the most part, there hasn't been as many. And that's, I think, because the stuff is still fluid right now because of COVID, because of where productions are at. They're not necessarily sure the stuff that they can necessarily tease all the time. And I get it. But it definitely has been felt like we're not talking as much about some of the post-credit stuff this year. And that's okay.
Well, and the last thing I would want is for them to tease. The last thing I'd want is for them to tease Kingpin returning. For them to tease Kingpin returning, and then something happening with contracts, and he can't return.
I mean, it's not just that, but it's like Chris is like leaving it on such an obvious death fake sucks. It's like it's a death fake that's obvious to us, avid TV watchers as well as readers of the comic who know what storyline is being adapted.
But look how the internet reacted.
Yeah, for some people, it's not that obvious. They Marvel trusted that enough people haven't read the comics and weren't aware of the comics that they could do this and have it be effective in the way that they wanted, and it was. But I do think that there are post-credit scenes that they could have done that would have been more effective, like something from Miss Marvel or something from like there's other things that are coming in the next year that are not movie related that could have been
teased,
teased or used to push forward or whatnot. And Justin, to address the MCU does fake death stuff so much, it's called comic books.
It's comic books. It's
it's what comics do.
My last question about this one, before we move on to the meat of the show. Oh God, they definitely powered up Kingpin, right? A little bit.
From the Netflix show, yes.
From the Netflix show, yes. From the comics, not really.
This was
God damn it, Marcus.
God damn it. Anyway, I'll say this. The thing I was very excited about was seeing that version of Kingpin in live action that I'd kind of always been waiting to see. I thought Michael Clark Duncan was very good in the original Daredevil movie in 2003. And he was really fun. And I've always liked D'Onofrio as the character, but I was kind of waiting for the merger of the two, where it was the one who felt like he really ran the underworld, but could also go toe to toe with Daredevil and Spider-Man. Like, I've been waiting for that version, and Feige finally found the balance of bringing him back, but giving him just enough of the power where he rips the car door off and can like grab metal arrows and split them in half, and like grabs, she shoots the arrow at him, he grabs it and pulls her forward. Like, the strength that he has and like feeling kind of superhuman is the thing I've been waiting for, because I've always liked that version of that character, and I never thought that the Netflix series got there. And that was not the point of the Netflix series, and that's okay. Like, the Netflix series was very grounded. It was supposed to be a lot more real, if you will. And this is the MCU. I want to be able to see D'Onofrio go against Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And now that's on the table, and it's a real thing that could happen. And so I was very excited to see that brought to life.
Dwayne.
I think I've said all I need to say about Hawkeye.
Great. All right. Guys, we got everything we... Whoops.
Sean's breaking shit again.
We got everything we wanted and more out of Spider-Man. Here's the current tally. I don't think this right here is extra innings. Marvel can't lose this year at this point. And
they wouldn't have lost here, is all I'm going to say.
They certainly, well, unless Dwayne. I've talked to Dwayne a little bit about this film. I saw him the night after it came out, so I don't really know Dwayne's full thoughts. I love this film. I love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I love the villains from the Raimi series. I love Tom Holland. I love Zendaya. I love Ralph something. Who plays
Ralph something?
Who plays Ned?
Ned?
Yeah.
Oh, Jacob Batalon?
Okay, I don't know who Ralph is then. Anyways, I loved this film. I thought it was fantastic. I have zero complaints about it. I had a dumb fucking smile from ear to ear this whole film. It made me so happy. Dwayne, please don't ruin my dreams.
No, I think this is, as far as the movies go, it's my second favorite movie all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right behind Infinity War. For similar reasons. And I might move it ahead of Infinity War. I don't know yet. But I think the way that it was put together, not only from the Holland side of things, but the way that they brought in Toby, Andrew, their respective villains, very much was like intentional, and you could feel the intention in the movie. I'm no longer really nervous about Fantastic Four because of this. Watts has my trust as much as Kevin Feige does with Fantastic Four now, because this like it really was, it really was, I think, a like Herculean effort to bring, and I think this is the reason why I might put it over Infinity War, is because they managed to bring 3 franchises together that were never intended to work together.
Right, and made them work so seamlessly.
Yeah, and made them work seamlessly. And I think that is, and I mean, technically they brought 4 together, because there are also references to the video game in the
Okay,
movie
so
as
I
well.
wasn't the only one that thought that.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a few references to the video game in the movie as well.
Because it's Feast. I don't remember Feast ever being in the comics.
That's not even what I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
Um, his fighting style,
his fighting. I turned
he uses like exact like
finishers from the
finishers
game.
from the game.
I turned to Jill at one point and said that
Yeah.
he's using finishers from the Spider-Man
Yeah.
games. And I absolutely love that. Is Feast in the you know better than I do? Is Feast in the comics? I don't think so. If someone knows, let us know. But
Yeah. I'll have to
yeah, I just fucking loved everything about this movie. Dwayne, Jill wants to know in the chat, and I also want to know personally, how does this rank against Spider-Verse for you?
I think Spider-Verse is still above this for me. But they're close.
Real
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, they're really close. I think I think Spider-Verse is higher for me just because I knew a lot less going into the movie. So I was more pleasantly surprised, but also what am I trying to say here? Spider-Verse also being like a solely Spidey movie also kind of gives it a leg up.
I think their
this, for me.
utilization of different Spider-Man villains is really good.
Well,
like-
it's that even though his involvement is minimal, like Doctor Strange being in this to kind of be the catalyst of everything still like kind of knocks it back a little bit for me, because it's one of the biggest complaints we've had about the MCU Spider-Man films is like Spider-Man can't have a Spider-Man film.
Yeah. And that's been a Sony contract thing.
Yeah, I don't want to step on PJ here, but and I don't want to step on your point about Strange, but for me, Strange worked so well because he kind of.
I'm not saying he didn't work well. He worked
No,
great.
yeah,
I just think that the thing that I liked about Spider-Verse is that the catalyst of the movie came from
the actions of
Spider-Man villain and the actions of his fight with said villain. Whereas like this again is another thing that's caused by the catalyst is caused by another character that really doesn't have any involvement traditionally with Spider-Man.
Okay. All right. Well, PJ.
Far and away, this is my number one MCU film, and it is my number one live action Spider-Man film, and it very well could be my number one Spider-Man film because everything Dwayne has said is correct. They took three franchises, three separate Spider-Men, and brought them together in one movie and made it feel seamless. And not just that, five villains, from the movies on top of it, and made it work. And it doesn't feel rushed or tacky or weird or anything like that. Like, this was 100% Feige being like, I can do the things that I can do, and I'm going to do it. And because people forget, like, he was an exec producer on those early Spider-Man films. There's a reason that Raimi's even doing Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have a relationship, and he had a relationship with Sony still, to the point that he was like very involved with the Amazing Spider-Man, to the point that the Avengers Tower was originally going to be in the movie until it wasn't. And that was because once they had like gotten to the point where the deal could have been made, they were too far along in the Amazing Spider-Man to have it done. But he went so far to take all this stuff and all these people who were saying that Holland wasn't having his proper origin and they were upset about the origin, and to recontextualize it that this was 3 films of an origin. Like, we took time with Peter to build Peter. And I'm forever going to probably call this the Great Power trilogy, because that's what it feels like. With great power comes great responsibility, and that's what this trilogy has been about. Like, it's all been about him learning that. And it took, like, Stark took him in, Stark died, but it wasn't his fault. You know, he did all the stuff with Mysterio, pretty much his fault. Then May dies, definitely his fault, right? And so for him to, like, go through these, to learn what it means to, like, have to learn great power, to learn what that great responsibility is, like, it's so great, and it's so moving, and it works so well, and it's because Holland sells it, and it's because the characters around him sell it. Like, we spent the stuff with May hits because we knew the character. Right. We spent so much time with the character. And I think that that's what's been so great about it. And then to contextualize it with Toby, to contextualize it with Andrew, to the way that they did it, like, and then to take a comic run from One More Day, which is arguably one of the worst Spider-Man comic minis of all time, and to take it, the idea, but go, we can flip that on its head and make it good and make it work and make it powerful and make it, like, as beautiful but heartbreaking as you're hoping it'll be. Yeah, give me that, because it was him finally learning great power, great responsibility in that moment. This movie rocks. Willem Dafoe coming back as Goblin and being, like, peak now Dafoe is excellent. And I thought Alfred Molina was great. Everyone was just, like, on point. And dude, Garfield is just, give that guy a movie.
I would love to see him as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever seen him as Spider-Man, so I'd love to see it. To your point, though, about the buildup of his backstory, I do think that the previous two mentors in Stark and Mysterio do a really good job of also teaching him the great power lesson, right? Because whether or not in the actual Spider-Man films, with what Peter sees Tony do in Endgame and Infinity War, it is Tony exactly going towards, I have this power, whether it is something supernatural or something that is granted to me by my intelligence and my gadgets. I'm using that power in order to sacrifice. You know, in the end, he sacrificed himself to save the world. And Mysterio doing the opposite. He's got this newfound power again with gadgets, nothing supernatural. And he does the complete opposite. He tries to prop himself up and make himself this icon where he has no right to be it. I think that for me also really sells that moment for Aunt May, because we've seen these other mentors try to teach him this lesson. It landed a little bit, but not fully. And granted, Mysterio wasn't trying to teach him that, but that's a lesson to be learned from Mysterio. I don't know. This film, I can't wait to see it again. I was supposed to go see it on Monday, and I didn't get a chance. I loved every moment of it. And I can't imagine that rewatches change that. Yes.
I want to add real quick. One of the things that I really like, and I think it was something that I'd seen a lot of people complaining about, was that Peter never really uses his intelligence, if you will, to fix problems. One of my favorite things in the movie was him in the mirror dimension and being like, wait, this is all geometry. Math. Yeah. I'm great at math, and, like, figuring out how he could do that. And then the three Peters sciencing together, like the new science bros hanging out and trying to create the formulas to save the villains. Like, that was so cool. It was so cool. And that's the other thing. This movie, the thing I like the most about both these two of the three Spider-Man movies have saved the villains. The villains are still out there for Peter to run into again. And I think that that's really important. Of all the characters, arguably outside of Batman, Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries. And so leaving those characters alive to come back in capacities later is such a big deal to me. And I like that they've continued this trend of, he doesn't kill them. In this one, he's rehabilitating them. In the first one, it was he left him alive and sent him to jail. But he's always been about not killing it. And he wasn't even going to kill Mysterio. Mysterio ended up killing himself.
Yeah, and I will say, I think I like the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery better. because they all have at least most of them, the big important ones, have a connection to Peter.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the Batman villains just don't. They have a connection to Batman, but not a
But
connection
not
to
to Bruce.
Yeah, not yeah. Sorry, thank you.
You said Peter.
Yeah, I mean it's Dwayne, PJ, and I've gushed a lot. Do you have anything else on spiders?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's a great movie. It was masterfully done. Whether you have issues with the way kind of Peter's been portrayed in the MCU so far or not, which I do, and
it's fair.
It's
That's
not
fair.
really about the intelligence or anything like that. The biggest thing for me was that, and maybe we'll see this moving forward, now that he's had his like Uncle Ben moment. It's just that it took so long to get there that I kind of started disassociating with the character a little bit. But the biggest thing that's always resonated with me with Spider-Man is that Peter is always at his core been someone with great power that wants nothing more to be normal, but knows that he can't be normal. And the enthusiasm that he has to be Spider-Man and to be an Avenger, that is the part that didn't jive with me in this adaptation of Spider-Man so far. But we kind of got a little bit of it in No Way Home when he was like, or not No Way Home, and Far From Home when he's like, well, I'm going to go on this class trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And then we kind of got it a little bit in No Way Home when he's like, I'm going to go to college, even though all this shit just happened. And then I think now we finally are going to get that Peter that like is hesitant to live because he knows that he can't have certain things.
Well, the ending they gave Peter definitely feels like the Spider-Man 2 Raimi Peter. Like, not in the same morose, woe is me way.
But like living in the apartment by himself, like listening to the scanners, going out to fight crime. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think Dwayne's right. And I think part of it was like overall, because as we've recontextualized it in what they've been doing at over 3 movies, they basically they took that super excited version of Peter who wanted to join the Fantastic Four in like the earliest versions of the comics, but they transferred it to the Avengers because the Fantastic Four didn't exist yet that we're aware of. And so him being like this idealistic kid who wanted to join a super team because he had powers, like I get it. I totally get it. And I think that they've done a great job of working through that. He realized by the time Homecoming was over, he was like, you know what? I'm not meant to be one of you.
Right.
I'm
and then just to go in Endgame and not Endgame, Infinity War does kind of flip that, but I think it needs to.
Well, it's also he just sees something going on and he's like, I should swing over to see what's happening.
Right.
It was more of it's my town, what's happening, and then Tony's like, hey, do the thing, chase the wizard.
But it's more the like, you're an Avenger now. Oh, I'm an Avenger now? Like, how excited, I think that does take away from that moment a bit. But yeah, you're right. I do think, I don't know. Because
I'm glad that they figured out a way, is what I'm getting at. Because Dwayne's right. He needs to have he can't live his normal life.
Right. He, and we're going to get a lot more of because this Spider-Man is lacking that personal, like, civic life problems that the other spiders have had to deal with. I guess Andrew Garfield didn't really have to deal with those, but in the comics and Toby has had to deal with so strongly. In my opinion, I think Toby Spider even plays it up really heavy. But yeah, what
quick.
do you go ahead?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I just want to shout out Feige for being able to pull all this off. Like, I know we were all kind of talking about it, but it was an impossible task. And at the end of the day,
Amy Pascal.
Yes, 100% yes. And so, but them coming together and doing it, but more of finding a way to bridge what burned bridges there were between Andrew and Sony and Toby and Sony and anyone else involved in that. That was a thing that I didn't think would ever necessarily happen. And so, like, good on every party involved sitting down and being like, we want to make this work enough that, like, I was reading an interview with the writers today. They, like, when they were doing it, Toby and Andrew were notified, like, very early on, this is the plan. And they came in and they would, like, these are the ideas of what our character would do in this scenario. And they helped them write the movie. That's big. That's a huge thing that they didn't have to do, and they did. And I think that it shows by the time that movie is over. Those scenes with the three of them are really great because it really is a love letter to each version of those characters that have existed.
Absolutely.
In very specific ways. And I think it makes me fondly look back even more on, like, Spider-Man 3. It may not necessarily be great, but I remember it more fondly even now because of them doing that. Or the Amazing Spider-Man 2 with the Gwen sequence and the conclusion to the Gwen sequence in this movie, if you will. Like, there's just those little things where they take those story beats and these characters and they did something special, man. Like, it's a once in a lifetime thing that'll never be able to be done again. They were the only franchise who could pull it off this way, and they did.
There's also something really interesting that, like, we'll never get it, right? But Andrew said, like, he stopped pulling his punches. I would love to see that Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I talked about that too. I would love to see how dark it really got.
Like the vengeance Peter.
Well,
and it's almost like I would have liked a new costume for him.
Would they call it Spider-Man?
Yes.
The Spider-Man, yeah.
And I'll say, I think that it's not a mistake in the Morbius trailer. Like, I think Morbius's timeline is going to be, like, real weird and wonky anyway. But I think that there's a picture where it says murder over a Spider-Man poster in the trailer, but it's the Raimi costume. I actually think it's supposed to be the Garfield version. And I think that Morbius and Venom will be living in Garfield's world. And I think that makes the most sense. And I think it would give Sony the cake and eat it too, if you will. Like, they get the Marvel deal. Tom Holland keeps playing in the Marvel sandbox. But now we can go back to having a Spider-Man franchise kind of our own. And, like, Feige, I'm sure, will have his way of helping. Like, now they set it up. You know, Andrew and Toby have fought aliens. Guess who hasn't?
Right.
And they make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Where did Venom go? Like, so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, I think that we're going to get I think Andrew's for sure coming back in some capacity no matter what, and I'm very excited.
Okay, do you think we get Toby and Andrew into the Spider-Verse?
Possibly.
Okay.
I think there's a chance it happens.
But I think it's possible, but I think they're going to save something like that until they bring Miles into live action.
The MCU. Okay.
Yeah. They definitely
I hope they do sooner rather than later.
I hope later rather than sooner.
Really?
Because I want Tom Holland to mature as Spider-Man before they bring Miles.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. I think that there's at least another 3 movies in Holland of maturing as Spider-Man.
Whoa.
I mean, he has another 3 movies, so
right.
Does he does? Are they 3 MCU movies or 3 Sony movies?
Well, I mean, with how this ended,
they didn't. So they said 3 Spider-Man films. They didn't say how many MCU appearances.
Okay.
Yeah. And Feige has said that they're already Feige's already said they're already well on to working the next movie.
They said they're working on another trilogy.
Good.
Of Spider-Man films.
Yeah, because Amy, I think, even dropped the trilogy bomb.
Yeah.
I think Kevin was initially like, we're working on the next one, and then Amy was like, we have a trilogy.
And,
Whoops. Well, she's probably just stoked. I mean, this is the best. Like, this is the best. This is the highest grossing Sony film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or on track to be.
And it beat Infinity War in the opening weekend box office.
Damn it.
Yeah.
This film is just.
So I just My thing, and this is another thing that I hope they do, and I think they will. Give it like 3 or 4 years before another Spider-Man film.
That sounds right, to be honest.
Like maybe even 5 or 6.
Let Tom rest.
Give it.
Well,
Just
you mean
well,
another
It's just
Tom Spider-Man film?
well, yeah, because obviously we're getting into the Spider-Verse Part 1, and then I think that they completed them both back to back, so Part 2
Okay.
will probably be the next year. Um,
What about
but
if
the-
we were to get a Garfield Spider-Man in that time?
uh,
Too confusing.
I would much rather, if we're going to see him back as Spider-Man, it's in like Venom 3. It's not in his own.
Yeah, that's
movie.
what I mean. In another film.
Yeah, him in another film is fine. I don't think we need another Spider-Man
I think that's fair.
centric film. I think that I think that the best thing to do is we come back to Spider-Man, and he's been doing his thing for a while.
Sure.
Do you still want him to pop up in other mediums? In other movies?
I mean, he can. I would prefer not,
Okay.
because he doesn't exist as far as the wider MCU is concerned. Well, I mean, he exists, but
Peter
like,
Parker doesn't
Peter
exist.
Parker.
but nobody knows who he is, so it's
Right.
like they have no reason to work with him.
Yeah, I
have a feeling that whatever comes next for Watts with Fantastic Four, I think Holland will likely have a cameo of sorts, and I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to work with Reed or something. It
And
would
Reed
be like a
turns him
short
down.
cameo, like
I-
working as a scientist. I could see that.
Either that or just like trying to get an interview or something.
Yeah, something along the
I-
lines of that.
or
So
if they go
I
with
put it out-
the photographer plot line, just him taking pictures at a press event or outside the Baxter building.
I mean, I put it out there that I think that a good way forward, because like Oscorp doesn't exist
Right.
currently. That I think, because I think we need to separate his villains coming from like Tony Stark and like kind of having their origin in Tony Stark. Possibly like Norman Osborn buys like Hammer Tech or something like
Mhm.
that, and kind of starts. That's how Oscorp starts. And kind of go from there. So like Norman Osborn doesn't exist as the Green Goblin yet, but he will.
Right.
Who do we cast as this Norman?
I don't know.
I mean, it depends on what you're like. I mean,
Viggo
Fa-
Mortensen. I don't know.
Ooh, I'm in. I'm
I don't
sold.
McConaughey could be good depending on the version you're trying to do. Like,
I thought you were gonna say Macaulay Culkin, and I'm also sold.
I'd
I
be
mean, I
down
don't
for that.
hate the idea. Yeah, I don't hate that idea at all, actually.
I'd be down for it.
Like,
Um,
Macaulay came back for the American Horror Story this year. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
I want Haley Joel Osment.
Evan Peters.
Well, that'd be funny. That'd be funny. All right. We were gonna get into what we were most excited for next year, but we've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Whoopsies. Any closing thoughts from you, gentlemen?
I mean, this year for the MCU was a lot, and
It was.
I think people have kind of forgotten how long it kind of took Phase 1 to take shape. And this is kind of Phase 1 version 2. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not bad,
here's
Tim.
here's my own here's kind of my only thing that I kind of I don't want Norman Osborn to be too much older than Peter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
He needs to be old enough to have a son Peter's age, but not like super old. So maybe like mid 40s, and kind of that's like the cap.
Can I tell you where my brain's at right now? I just thought, you know who would be a really good uh, Goblin is the detective from Boondock Saints. And then I realized what my brain was doing.
God damn it, Sean.
For those that are unaware, that's Willem Dafoe. Whoopsies.
Because the thing is people forget, like, Goblin was already, like, Norman Osborn was already in really good shape, like, prior to becoming.
I think someone like Dafoe is way too old to play Tom Holland's Parker. I know it's Willem Dafoe. That's the joke.
Yeah.
I think Michael Shannon could do a pretty good.
He doesn't look mid-40s though. that's kind of the problem.
I don't know, man. I could see him.
I mean,
here's the thing.
Maybe when he's clean shaven and got his hair slicked back.
And I want to see the I'll tell you what I want to see.
But when he starts growing out the facial hair, he does not look mid-40s.
I want to see,
and I don't mean that in a bad way at all, because he's a good-looking man.
I want to see the whoever we get for the next Osborn. I want to see.
I want to see the red hair with the lines.
Oh, I want to see the cornrows. Yeah. Or no, it's not even cornrows, right? The lines go sideways.
The lines go sideways.
Yeah, they're sideways. I'm convinced they're sideways cornrows. I could, you know what? I think I could see Michael Shannon. And I'm down for Michael Shannon. I actually think that's so long as he slims down a little bit from where he was with Zod, because I do think Goblin needs to be a little more slender. I could see Michael Shannon for sure. I know it's your bit, but I like that casting.
I mean, he doesn't really need to slim down though, because
I guess I don't know what he looks like now.
Norman Osborn is supposed to be an imposing figure, like even prior to the Goblin serum.
Would you rather see like a more Ultimates Goblin where I guess a more traditional Goblin where he's kind of got no mask but actually like start getting green tinge to the face and like mutating, or would you rather see? That's what I want to see.
What about David Tennant as Norman Osborn?
I thought about David Tennant.
I think
he might be too.
He
might be too slender.
And I'll be honest. Until you said Zod, I was thinking of Michael Sheen.
Oh, that's fair. Well, that's the kind of night we're having. Yeah, no, Michael Shannon is Zod, and I think he's great. I think he'd be great as.
But Michael Sheen, that's it.
Wouldn't be bad either.
I would think he'd be great.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't say David Tennant is because in my mind I thought we were talking about Michael Sheen, and I was like, well, they just did Angels and Demons. No, not Angels.
No. Good Omens.
Good Omens together.
Good Omens,
and I'm like, oh, that's a little too close.
A little too spot on. But you know what? He'd be pretty good. Although I do agree with you. He might be a bit. Well, you know what? His Angels and Demons, Coach Wright says.
Good Omens.
When Michael Sheen, when he's clean shaven and kind of slicked his hair back like he has in Tron Legacy,
yeah,
I think that look.
The nose sells it.
Would work. But if he has any sort of facial hair, like, that doesn't work. He's a good-looking man, but his facial hair, he looks much older than he.
The beard in Underworld has always been a weird, like, it looks weird in that third one.
Well, and I mean, you can,
hair dye. When it gets like a little bit more scruffy, when it gets like out. I don't know if you've seen him when he's had it like grown
what was
out.
it?
Like
what was it that he was in that had that?
He looks.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, hair dye exists, but I will say,
but
he's going great.
They've used hair dye in the MCU before, and it didn't turn out well for Chris Hemsworth eyebrows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because this is a pretty recent photo of Michael Sheen, and I'm 50-50 on Michael Sheen.
Yeah, he's a good looking man. But
He's a
yeah,
good-looking man, but I think
yeah.
I agree with you on the age being just slightly the current age, if as is. But makeup and hair and makeup go a long way. So
Craven has been cast.
do we do we have
Well,
a Crave?
Craven in Sony's universe, allegedly at least,
Oh, Who
is
is it?
Taylor Johnson.
it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. It was Quicksilver.
Yeah.
oh, okay. So we can't get that. Okay. Um, yeah, that's fair. That's
Tim's not
fair.
wrong. Tim's not wrong.
That's fair. All right, boys, boys, girls, children of all ages. Um, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was
PJ,
fun.
let's start with you. What are you working on? Where can people find you?
You guys know pretty much. Twitter, Instagram, PJ_Campbell, Movie Trivia Schmodown. Hey, I write the questions. Be nice to the writers. We're only human. We're gonna work on getting some video stuff up and running again at the beginning of the year. So be on the lookout.
Dope. Dwayne.
You can find me anywhere and everywhere on the internet at Burkmade. I will be back streaming on Twitch come the new year.
Woohoo.
I'm gonna be doing things a little bit differently than I have been in the past. I think there's gonna be a lot less gaming and a lot more just kind of fucking around and doing streaming stuff live on stream. Check out my YouTube channel. My OBS masterclass that I kind of released privately last year, I'm going to be releasing publicly starting next week or this week. I think it's first episode goes out on the 4th. I don't know. The premiere is already up on my channel, so you can see what day it's going to premiere. It's on there. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz, whatever. I mean, even if you don't care about learning how to do live streaming stuff in OBS, just do it for me. It's free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peach, what were you gonna say?
I forgot to plug something, but I don't want to step on Dwayne as long as Dwayne
No,
is done.
do it. Do it.
No, as long as Dwayne is done. I'm not going to do it unless Dwayne is done.
I was also gonna say I'm also gonna be doing outside of like OBS setup and stuff like that. I'm hoping to be able to start doing some like gear reviews and like testing and stuff like that, and kind of like being able to tell you like, hey, this is worth your money and this isn't. So please check it out. I've already got a couple of the things that I want to test on the way. They're going to be things that I'm going to start using in the production of FCL next season. We're getting the underway as well. I don't think it's going to start until March, but FCL. Oh, the FCL YouTube channel. We're going to be rebroadcasting all the matches over the next 2 months. So
Nice.
check that out if you want.
That's good because I need to catch up on some of those.
And I think that's all I got. I think.
Guys, you could find me here. Oh no, PJ, you had something else. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, there's a podcast that's going to be coming up soon with myself and PLD, head writer of the FCL. So look out for that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. I hope you like scary movies.
Interesting. Well, thanks for the invite, I guess. Anyways,
You'll be back.
I also hate scary movies. So you can find me here, apparently. Look, I'm not promising you're going to get a lot of these. In fact, my plan for this channel is going to be very different from what you guys got today. PJ and I just wanted to do kind of a end of the year wrap up and talk about the MCU and kind of gush about films we love. But tomorrow night you can find me on the Gucciverse. That channel still exists, I guess. But we'll be doing a Mandalorian review, myself, Saul, and Rachel Silvestrini with Chris Hall from the Gucciverse. And then following that, I will be streaming Witcher 3 on my Twitch, twitch.tv/Sean Sully. I would say the links are in the description, but I didn't set up a description for this video because I'm new to YouTube. We're still figuring it out. Thanks so much to those of you that have already subscribed. Tell your friends, share this with your friends. Don't share this with your friends. This is way too long of a video for anyone to conceivably watch. Those of you that have stuck through it, thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
The new year. In the new year, I'm going to be streaming a lot. I have a schedule. Some of it's still up in the air. but I've freed up some of my schedule from some other entanglements, and I'll be streaming a lot next year, and hopefully doing a little bit of stuff on this channel, maybe a couple times a month. Nothing crazy. Yeah, support me on my Twitch because I need to buy a new computer. Because this one's dying on me. So yeah, if you wanna help me with that, Max Rebo does live. I don't know that we're gonna do a Book of Boba show. We might do something here after a couple episodes have aired, but we're not gonna do week by week. Honestly, week by week just isn't fun for me. It's not fun for PJ. I don't think it's very fun for Dwayne. It's a little too much. In my opinion, when you go week by week like that, you have to make up things to say and really, like, I mean, I'll say it here. I love Book of Boba. I think all of us did, Dwayne.
I liked
Yeah,
it.
I mean, so far so good.
Okay, so we all at least liked Book of Boba. I think it has some issues, but I don't need to jump on camera to tell you, like, hey, I thought the first episode's a little weak, but I can tell where they're going with the show and I really like it. That's it. That's my opinion. Yeah, if you want Book of Boba content, the Damons, Ken Knapsack over on Force Center, they've got great shows about it already. I may do something on my own, something
Maybe
a little
when
more
it's
independent.
over.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I think we'll do something when it's over.
But
But
I think that the big thing people don't realize, and this is getting a little, inside baseball and whatnot, but for new channels, smaller channels, things like that don't really move the needle, because people go to people like the Damons, Ken Knapsack, the Force Center podcast. For that content, they don't go looking for new places to find that type of stuff. So we would kind of be wasting our time if we did it, because I don't know if anyone knows what it really takes to get monetized on YouTube. It can happen fast, but not really with stuff like that.
yeah,
that's
yeah. I mean, and ultimately, I'm fighting time, right? Like,
yeah.
I only have so much time to do this stuff. My full-time job is rough. We might do some sort of Hawkeye wrap up. That's not a bad idea. And when I say we, it doesn't mean it'll be here. It might be on PJCN / Off the Rails, or on Dwayne's channel. Maybe we'll just air it on Twitch. Really, Twitch is my main my main outlet. So this is really supposed to be ancillary to my Twitch and in support of my Twitch, because the problem is you need somewhere else to grow other than Twitch. So this year
won't be on my YouTube channel. We can.
Yeah, I know, but I was just
settle that.
I know, I just didn't want to be like, it won't be on Dwayne's because fuck Dwayne.
Well, no, it's one
just
of
not
those
the
things when you're trying to set a niche and a demographic for a channel, it just doesn't fit what people coming to my channel are looking for. So it wouldn't really do any good and would actually hurt my channel more than it would help to have it on my channel.
And as of right now, I don't have an aim or a goal for this channel other than to be somewhere for me to be able to do stuff like this outside of Twitch. And a few other things that I want to do, but that's probably not for a few months down the line. I want to do some D&D and gaming related content. Movies and TV aren't really my bag. I love it. I'm a big fan. But gaming is where my heart lies. So ultimately this is going to, down the road, this will probably be a lot more gaming focused. That's both tabletop and video game related. Now, don't get me wrong. I love me my Marvel and Star Wars and anything fantasy. So you'll probably still hear me gush about all that stuff. But, the stuff I'm working on and trying to figure out, learning to edit and learning to put videos together, is going to be for some other content down the road. Chris brings up family game nights. So that's something we used to do with PJCN. I've kind of hijacked that, and we've started doing those on my Twitch, mostly with Smash Brothers. But I think you're going to be seeing some more of those coming up. I want to try to once a month do some family game night stuff on Twitch, and then we may rebroadcast that to either Off the Rails or here. I'm not sure we got to figure out some stuff with Off the Rails, and honestly, we just haven't put anything up there, and I'm not sure, with let's be honest here, we all kind of want to do, we want to be the captains of our own ships at a certain point. That's why PJ's doing stuff with PLD, and Maxwell's starting his own venture, and I'm kind of starting my own ventures, because
A one-stop shop doesn't work. Really.
yeah, the one-stop shop method does not work. So it's I don't know why I'm having this conversation live, because PJ and Chris and I and Max haven't really had this discussion, but it's we've all kind of we've all kind of started working on our own things, because look, keeping something together like that is hard. Now, are you still going to see us all working together? Fuck yeah, you are. I mean, that's why we did this tonight.
We work together, and it's fun, and we like each other's company. I mean,
and we work. I think we all work together. We work together well. Yeah, and Chris says he's going to focus on band stuff. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked him out,
they're amazing.
What are they called? One Crazy Night, One Wonderful Night, something night.
Wonderful Crazy Night.
Wonderful Crazy Night. Bitchin' fucking band. If you haven't checked it out, Chris, where does that rebroadcast live?
Their YouTube channel, I believe.
Okay, so the Wonderful Crazy Night YouTube channel, it's gonna be pinned on Chris's Twitch, or it's on my Twitch, or on Chris's Twitter or my Twitter somewhere. If you haven't checked that concert out, go check it out. It's amazing. You got Alex Marzonia, Ben Bateman, and David B's band. By the way, you'll also be seeing a lot of David B on collaborations and stuff we do, because he's the homie. You're also going to see stuff in person from me, Dwayne, and David. I don't know if that's going to be here or somewhere else, but that's coming in the new year as well. We all live within 20 miles of each other.
Yep.
A year ago, that wasn't true. Part of the PJCN thing was bringing people together that were across state lines.
Yep.
There's only so much we can do from a Streamlabs. There's so many channels that do stuff on Streamlabs, and look, I appreciate it and I love it, but there's something magical about being in the same fucking room,
You mean StreamYard? I was like, because
I always get those.
Because we do. Because I was gonna say we do need. Well, not Streamlabs, because Streamlabs is a terrible company, but But tips and support, we do need that.
Yeah. Now that being said, the PJCN / Off the Rails is not going anywhere. We're probably going to do some box on there soon. Maxwell and I have talked about a lot of box stuff. So don't worry. And Rachel and I today were talking about Show Me Naughty. So don't worry, that stuff.
It's still all going to exist still. Yeah, it's still.
Yeah, it's still stuff we want to do. It's just whether or not what channel it ends up living on. It's still going to be.
It'll always be around, Steven. In some capacity. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think ultimately what's happening is a lot of the PJCN stuff is just going to start moving to its own channels. The PJCN is still the PJCN.
So what I would probably, and I mean, this isn't my call, but for anyone who's imagining what this would look like in the future, all of us will do our own things on our own channels, and then whenever we do something collaborative, it will probably be on Off the Rail.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, like this probably should have lived on Off the Rails, but the reason we did it here was because I needed a push to start putting things here, and this was my push to start putting things here. So, and it let me, learn thumbnails, and I'm proud of that fucking thumbnails.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm very proud of you. Very proud of you.
So, all right, folks, I want to thank you all so much. You already subscribed. I don't expect anyone who
should.
Well, I mean, look, if you didn't, fuck you.
That's one way. It's one way of doing it.
All right, I love you. I don't have an outro yet, so
I got no new subscriber on my new channel, or on my channel.
Well, someone subscribe to Burkmade, guys.
So Sean's point stands.
I mean, look, I'm happy with my 42 I've gotten.
I'll say this: I've been trying to make sure it's been paused. But I'm going to try to rework the Patreon. I think for future endeavors and things, because I mean, the PJCN is the reason that we're all still doing this stuff together. And so it will live on in some capacity. And I think that Sean and I have even talked privately behind the scenes of stuff that if we could figure out ways to do it, we wouldn't be against it. I'm going to be sending you guys some cool stuff pretty soon is my hope. The last 7 months, especially the last 4 with the show, were just a lot.
Just to clarify, it is paused, right?
Yeah, it should be.
Good. Patty, it should be paused. If it's not, please let either myself or PJ know.
I will look right now.
You should not be being charged for the 6 months that we haven't done jack shit. Also, you're going to hear me be a lot more honest on this channel because I'm not beholden to anyone here. This is my castle and I make the rules. I don't know what that voice is. I do funny voices sometimes, guys. Although that one's not really funny. All right. Chris Clark's in the back room. He wants to hang out with us. So sorry for going 25 extra minutes. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for playing. PJ's going to check into this. Patty, like I said, reach out if it's not.
I'm making sure this month.
Look, I'll see you tomorrow on my Twitch. So you guys come hang out. We'll probably have other people hanging out, and Friday and Saturday probably too. Who knows? I don't know. I plan on streaming like all fucking weekend. So come hang out. All right. See ya.